posting all over LinkedIn back in the day, talking about AI and packaging, and then met Terry through him. And these two have just been, they're the first two in mind, because I really want them to show off how they are using it and any of the latest and greatest things that we can start to kind of begin to be as curious as possible with this and see where does it play in our futures and in our industry. So first up, we're going to have Terry Campbell. Terry, he's been named one of the best advertising photographers in the world. I love that. That's a great quote, dude, because I think you are. And you've worked with just about every brand out there in the world. He leads Terry Studios. They are a photography-based consumer packaged goods company, restaurants, beverage, food-related things, all up my alley. When I started to see some of the stuff he was doing, I thought it was so cool how he became this innovator in using AI specifically for areas that he really would need, and it could benefit his business, but more importantly, his clients as well. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Terry. You are up. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's give everyone a round of applause first, and you are ready to go.
All right, thanks, guys. I'm going to share my screen. Hope this works. I'm going to go full screen and see it. Well, it just went down there. Let's go full screen and see if I can advance this. Sometimes it has trouble advancing. But anyway, yeah, great. Good morning, guys. It's noon here, but I know it's still very early there. So I appreciate you coming in on a Saturday morning. I'm going to start with this quote of follow your curiosity. I was listening to the radio the other day and heard someone talking about it. I wish I remembered the name of who they were interviewing, but that idea of following your curiosity and not your dreams really resonated with me. I've been in this business for 35 years now, so a pretty long time. And I distinctly remember being at a workshop in my 20s, and we were to envision what our perfect photo shoot was like, what was happening, who was there, what was going on, to get a vision for the future. And for me, I wanted to be a commercial photographer. I wanted to have lots of clients on set. I wanted to be a big brand. I wanted it to be lots of props, and I just saw tons of activity and tons of things. And of course, this is the 80s, so I'm someone that wants a photo studio. I know that's not as popular these days and not as necessary in the photographic field, but back then that was the goal. So I really hung on to this idea, and I think I did myself a disservice because I never really updated that dream. I think I was always learning. I did follow my curiosity in some ways, but I held a little too tightly to that dream. So I think in this generation, there's going to be so much change. For me, it's been like 35 years and then change. I think for you, it's going to be a lot more change happening a lot more quickly. So the problems I see with following a dream are they tend to be fixed. You don't always update them, and you may not dream big enough. I've been very fortunate in my career that vision I had in my 20s of working with big brands and doing these things, it happens. It happens every week, so it's not something anymore that, it's left me in kind of a crisis. Like, what am I going to do next? I'm not growing in this space. I've kind of achieved that dream I wanted to achieve, So let's talk a little bit about who I am as a food and drink photographer and director. These images are captured traditionally on digital, not film, but none of them involve AI. This is all pre-AI, or some of the work I do currently that's not AI. So, of course, I survived the digital revolution as we moved from film into digital in the early 2000s. I used to shoot 8x10 film, 4x5 film all the time. And now I shoot on a 35 millimeter Canon camera 99% of the time. So the world has definitely changed with the digital revolution in photography and how that's affected our industry, which I think is one of the reasons I'm not very concerned about AI, because I've kind of lived through this. When digital came along, if you'd have told me 20 years ago, 20 years from now, everybody's going to have a camera that's just as good as yours in their pocket, I would have said, what am I going to do? I'm out of business. I got to figure out something else to do with my life. Yet that's not what has happened. I'm busier now than I was 20 years ago. So, as you continue to embrace these challenges and the technologies and the things that come along, I think you can continue to grow with that and become, even more of an asset to your clients. If your only skill is knowing how to load film and get the proper exposure, you probably went out of business in 2006. But, if you can rise above that, if you can find other ways to deliver value to your clients, there's always opportunity at the top. this is some of the packaging work we do. Our work is split probably between food packaging and food point of purchase. So menus, menu boards, that kind of thing. And then a lot of packaging work like these. And people often think the food is fake because that's such the internet meme that goes around, but the food is real. It is, what we're selling is real. Let's say that the milk in the cereal does not have to be real milk. In fact, it would cause problems because it would have absorbed into the cereal very quickly, make it difficult for us to make changes on set. So the milk may not be real, but the food, by and large, is all real food. So CNBC, my source for creative inspiration, not what you think of. And not what I was thinking when I was listening to CNBC about a year ago, or reading. I think I was reading the blog, and I saw a post about AI and generative images, and I thought, what is this? This is something I think I could use. Of course, artificial intelligence, which probably should have been called augmented intelligence, because that's really what it is. It's just another tool like Photoshop, like digital, like so many things. It's another tool we use to get to the point we want to be at. It's not the replacement. It's just another thing we can use. Having said that, this quote went around the internet a lot when first started getting into AI, and it sounded like, whoever said it was being a little bit flip, like, hey, I won't replace you. Somebody that uses AI will, ha ha. But as time has passed, it has become more and more true, I believe, that this is something that will come to pass, or at least if you don't want to use AI, at least understand it so that you can place your arguments against it and talk about why you don't want to use it. So I mentioned a year ago, I had done an image a few months before hearing about the AI of this oregano. And this oregano was shot just on a gray background for a package. We actually only needed a few of the leaves off of it, but we just shot the whole stem because it was so pretty. And when I started reading about AI and thinking about what it could do, I thought, well, could I have used it? Because I guess, let me back up. When I shot the oregano, it was so pretty. I was like, oh, I should like shoot some dirt, shoot a sky, and try to blend it together and make this look like it was just planted in the field or something. And I thought, I'm probably never going to do that. I'm never going to come to the studio on a Saturday and get dirt, try and shoot it, try and blend the sky into it. But when I read about the AI, I thought, could the AI have done that? And so I started creating this dirt and sky. And that's all one image in AI. And I just stripped in the oregano into it. So it was like, wow, that changed everything. I would have never probably done that shot had it not been for AI. Something similar with this, I did a job for Maker's Mark, and they wanted a set with bottles out of focus in the background, and they wanted, a certain kind of bar and all these elements. And it just became too expensive because we needed to show bottles, but they couldn't be recognizable as other brands. You couldn't, bring that into it. So it was just such a challenge. Constructing the set was going to be 20 grand. And it was like, the project never happened. I don't know if it never happened because of the expense or for other reasons, maybe creative strategy. But for me, I thought, well, now that AI has come along, could I have done that with AI and saved myself a boatload of money? Yes, you can. This image is 100% AI. I told it to put a bottle in the foreground just because at that time it really kind of needed something to focus on and something to build around. So I thought, well, I'll just strip out that bottle and replace it with whatever bottle I want to put in there. Again, I was just doing this as a concept test. This is not for a client. But as I got into it, I really liked how the AI had created the bottle and the highlights and stuff. So I just shot a label, wrapped it around the bottle to give it more real presence. And then I shot the peanuts and the napkins and placed those in there and add a little flair. So, this was a place where I saw I could really use the AI and backgrounds and backplates for different images. It seemed like that was a perfect fit. There were so many images going around in the beginning of like a chocolate Darth Vader. And it's like, great, we can make chocolate Darth Vader, but I can't sell chocolate Darth Vader. I'm a commercial photographer. How can I use this commercially? How can I use this to benefit my clients and to make my process better and create things that I could have never created before? This one too is an early image, but I thought with Thanksgiving coming up, it was important to include it because the minute I created this image, I thought, if you own a magazine or a publication, why would you ever hire a photographer again? Unless you need a picture of, Miss Betty and her pumpkin pie, why couldn't this suffice? If it's just a generic story about Thanksgiving or pumpkin pie, this would be perfectly appropriate. So it just really opened my eyes to like, wow, there's a whole little subset of photography here that I believe is going to be, you know, hopefully in the hands of creative imaging professionals like myself, but certainly not in the hands of photographers that, you know, made a life just doing these little one-off kind of shots. Also for a nonprofit, you know, nonprofits tend to not have a lot of money. And if you were doing a story about, you know, trafficking of young girls or mental illness, you know, are you going to take someone that's in that situation and marginalize them more, or, you know, take advantage of them with showing their photo and attaching that to that? Or are you going to hire a model and probably pay a lot more because now you've associated this model's face with that particular, you know, social event or thing going on? So, you know, there's the first challenge. Second challenge is, okay, I've got to find a location. I've got to get hair and makeup. I've got to get wardrobe. You know, I've got to do all these things. I've got to hope it doesn't rain, you know, and do this shot, when you could just do it with AI and create the people and the scenes and the situations that you want. I think it makes perfect sense for that. This one is just because I love that the AI, you know, when you think about that 2 years ago, and what would AI do? What would it get? Well, certainly would understand that the chair has 4 legs because that's just science. That's just, you know, practical. But it wouldn't understand composition and light and shadow and direction of light. It couldn't get that. This image is just the opposite. It understands the composition. It understands the light. It understands the shadow. Some things that it should get right aren't right. You know, the wires on the jar don't really connect. There's flowers kind of floating in space. But when you look at it, it got the vibe of what I was trying to say. I think that was the most shocking thing for me, was that I could get the concept, and almost to the point that you didn't notice the chair only had 3 legs right away. You know, you notice the concept. So, you know, if I'm concepting or trying to get ideas for something new, it's a great place to start because it understands those things so well and can give me inspiration. This one was because I was bidding a job shooting honey dipper for a honey infused product. Done this hundreds of times, shot hundreds of honey dippers or honey bowls or all this stuff every time. And it's, you know, it's 2 inches big on a package, not even 2 inches big, you know, and it's just like a little bitty thing they need to add to it. And I had bid the job and I was waiting on the approval and it wasn't happening. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could do this with AI. While I'm waiting for them to approve it, I'm just going to play around. And I did this with AI, and it's not perfect, you know, but it did get wood grain. It did get a lot of things. It got highlights. It did 2 drips, which I wasn't thinking 2 drips, but when I saw it, I was like, well, that's kind of cool. That's different because every shot you see has one big drip. So it just made me aware that, like, again, not perfect, but in a year, where's that going to be? I mean, I think these are the kind of shots that there's no question will not be done traditionally anymore because it's too easy to create it. It's only going to be used small. It's not proprietary. It's just a flavor cue. So, you know, I think shots like this will be, you know, the new norm. And I could do this shot for a lot less, and I could also do a lot more of them. You know, it's the same way digital worked. When we didn't shoot film, we ended up shooting more images in a day and charging less per image. But in aggregate, overall, we still made more money. So I expect the same thing to happen with AI. Each shot will cost less, but we'll do more shots. This, you know, peaches, we have fake peaches at our studio because in March, it is darn near impossible to get peaches anywhere in the world. So we have fake peaches because the clients always want to shoot peaches in March. You know, that's just the way it goes. So our fake peaches are pretty good, but what if they wanted them on a tree? Now there's no way that's happening in March. I don't care where you fly me. So maybe I can do it with AI, and you can't. You can create these kind of things with AI. It's just amazing to me. Now the AI isn't always perfect. Most of the time, it's too perfect, I think. You know, you get shots like this, and as a photographer, I'm used to seeing that and going, oh, I can make something out of that. You know, I just brighten that up. I add some film grain, add some flare, do some other things. I can make that feel more photographic. So it's still knowing how to take it from what Midjourney can do or what, you know, Dolly or Stable Diffusion can do, and still add that your voice, your style, your techniques, you know, like I said, the grain, the other things, to really make it feel like a photograph. I think that's still where photographers will excel in this new industry. This one's another one that's just about, how good the AI is at composition and lighting directions. It wrinkled the paper right at the bowl. I didn't tell it to do that. It just did it. The shadows coming into the frame that, the blueberries still have light direction, but they don't have a hard cast shadow. It's just so incredibly good at this kind of stuff. So I just love that. And then in my work, I create a lot of kitchens because those are great backgrounds and things. But the napkin here is just so effortless. When I'm doing napkins, and I was last week, it just drives me crazy because you pick them up and throw them down, pick them up, throw them down, and they never look right. And then you pick it up, and the client says, "I like that one," and then you can't get it back. And so, I like that. Like I didn't have to think about it; it just did the napkin for me and made it look good. This is an example of another area that I think is ripe for AI. If you work for Betty Crocker and you need a post for Thursday at 3 o'clock, you're like, all right, what are we going to do? Okay, I got an idea. Let's build a set. Looks kind of, got some rough wood in it. Or put a window back there. We'll light it. We'll go out and we'll get all these props and we'll bring in a stove and, we'll set our product on the table and we'll shoot it. It's not cost effective for Thursday at 3 o'clock. That's not going to work. But what you can do is create an AI background with all those elements in one go, and then strip in the box of Betty Crocker Super Moist Cake that you shot on a gray background in the studio to match the lighting that was already created with the AI. So creating the AI image first, deciding on the lighting, the angle, the perspective, the focus, depth of field, and then shooting the product in gray in a studio space that's 10 by 10. So I think that this is the way content is king right now, and you can create content at a price that works for a Thursday post at 3 o'clock. And the fact that it's AI. I know it's not copyrightable, but who cares? It's a Facebook post for 2 hours. That's all you're going to use it for. And nobody has to know it's AI. I mean, unless you want to tell them, they can just look at that and assume what they want to assume. Likewise, if you had a campaign and you wanted to recreate 1974 in San Francisco, something you want to talk about, are you going to location scout, find streets with nondescript signs, or actually change some signs or some things, repaint some buildings to match the aesthetic of the time period? Are you going to look through thrift shops trying to find clothes? Are you going to cast models and have them cut their hair to 70s style, change their look, for the shoot? How are you going to do all that? That's going to cost so much money. And you're probably going to spend weeks in post-production just trying to match the color grade and the look of the film from the 70s. Or you can do it in AI and give it keywords like, a camera that was very popular in the 70s. If you include that or you include film, it starts to bring in not only the camera and the typical properties of that camera and the way it recorded things, but also it starts to bring in the style and the era, so you can really start to hone in on those things. So I think for stuff like that, it's just an amazing tool. For set design, a lot of times we can have a color scheme and we know what colors we want to paint it, but we don't really know what proportions or where they should be exactly. So doing things like this, you realize like, oh yeah, if we made the curtains orange, on that set and then painted the teal top and bottom, that seems like that would be perfect. So you can try out ideas, you can get new ideas, you can see something before you actually go to the expense of building it, and then on set realize like the curtains don't work. Oh, what if we did them in orange? You can do that beforehand now. So I think this ideation and trying to, figure things out is just huge. Again, I was doing kitchens and I wanted this urban feeling kitchen, and I never, ever would have said like, oh yeah, make the upper cabinets metal open shelves and just cram it full of stuff. I never would have said that, but the AI did it. And once I saw it, I went, oh, that's cool. I like that, So it gave me ideas, it gave me concepts and things I didn't think about, and I could incorporate them. So this one I took a step further though, because I had been watching The Mandalorian and realizing how they shoot that. If you're not familiar, they shoot it in a volume, a big LED screen, overhead, sides, kind of wrapping around everything. And that way, as the camera moves, the background is there and illuminated, and actually the illumination from the set is lighting the actors, the illumination from the LED panel. So I thought, I've got this project coming up and I need to show a model cooking at a stove, and we want to put a kitchen behind her. And I thought, how can I do that? Because I'm going to have to go out and shoot kitchens and then make big prints, or I'm going to have to shoot on green screen and then strip in a shot. How can I possibly do that and make it work. And what I decided was that I could use a TV. I could just put a TV behind her, right? That's like an LED screen, and shoot it that way. So I tested the idea with a 50-inch TV that I had. It seemed to work because I needed to do video as well as still images, and it seemed to work. So then I went out and bought an 80-inch TV. So what's behind her here is an 80-inch TV with that image on it, obviously color corrected and skewed a little bit. The stove is real, the cookies are real, and the model is real. But that's all. The rest of it is just the TV and the image on the TV. And we had enough room, we could even pan around, we could do some things with this. So, you know, having it not on a green screen, if I'd have done a green screen, number one, we might not have known until we got it in post that the oven wasn't square with the table, you know, that we had to move it some or something. Where with the TV, I was able to look at it and go, oh, move the oven, twist the oven this way. Or look at her outfit and go, does it work with the background? Yeah, okay. Or, you know, I didn't have to strip out her hair. I didn't have to do with any of that. So having a TV behind her and being able to shoot live in front of her, either at a table or at a stovetop, anything like that. We've done a couple projects now with this client, and it's just become the way we work with them, you know, TV background, do video, do some stills. And the TV is providing some illumination to the set as well. You would think reflection would be an issue. Wasn't an issue at all. I mean, you have to be a little bit careful with your light placement, but it's not really the issue I was anticipating at all. This one as well is the same concept, just 90% of this one's real, where the other one, it was 90% was fake or was AI. This one is just the wall you see in the background is AI projected on the television again. The rest of the stuff, the drinks and the bottles and everything were real, but I didn't have to strip out the bottle. I didn't have to outline it and bleed through a background because it was already happening. It was already on the TV. And when I started looking for like a stock image of a stone concrete wall, I wasn't finding what I wanted. So I thought I can just create it with AI and then just project it on the TV. The curtain as well as AI, because when I finished it, I was like, wow, what would a curtain look like coming in here? Just some other element. And so I created the curtain with AI, but the rest of it's real. And just, you know, a little bit of that AI work into it. So again, the AI image is not copyrightable, but who's going to know? Now, this one was a client brought me the bottle they were manufacturing. They didn't even have it produced yet. So all they had was a 3D rendering of the bottle. And he described to me kind of the atmosphere he was looking for and what he wanted to create with this product, and asked me to do something with the AI. So I created the table, the background, the whole scene, everything you see. The bottle was a 3D CGI image, and then even the glass I created in Midjourney. I did that just on a gray background. I just asked for a bourbon glass on a gray background, because that's how I would have shot it had I were, if I were shooting this to strip into the shot, I would have shot it on gray and then outlined it and stripped it in. So I kind of made the same process work with Midjourney. So the first thing was to create the background, then drop the bottle in, create the glass on gray, strip it out, and drop it in. So there's nothing real in this image, no real photography, CGI bottle, and then total Midjourney background. This one is kind of a breakthrough moment for me when we did the cinnamon roll. As a photographer, it's really about when the image is fixed. When you see the film from the lab in those days, or when the image comes up on the monitor. Just pushing the button is not enough. I mean, you kind of know the moment, but you're not assured until you see the image and go, yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted. And so for this image, it was one of those moments where I was like, when it came up in Midjourney and I saw the final image, it was just like, oh, yes, that's it. And I posted it on LinkedIn, and a friend of mine who's another food photographer in Minneapolis wrote to me, and he said, I really love that. That's great. But I would miss the camaraderie and the experience of being in the studio, working with a food stylist and a client and getting that shot just right. I would miss that excitement and that feeling. And I was like, Dennis, I had the same exact feeling I would have had we shot it in the studio, had I spent 2 hours doing it, had we worked really hard to get it right. I had that exact same feeling, but it only took me about 20 minutes and I was in my pajamas. So it assured me that this was real. This was tangible to me, because it made me feel exactly the same way I felt when I captured it the traditional means. And the funny thing is, if you brought me this image and said, okay, this is what we want, recreate this, I would just be like, really? Can we just use this? Because we're going to be a long time trying to get it that good. I mean, that is just incredible. The appetite appeal here. We always talk about that food photography, wanting someone to pick it up and eat it, wanting to make them hungry. I mean, this does that. It does all of that. The other aspect that has been opened up for me is I say I'm a food and beverage photographer, and I've been at this for 35 years. Truth is, the first 10, I shot a lot of people. I shot weddings. I shot babies. I shot a lot of commercial work, but it was packages of Tide and whatever else. I shot a lot of different stuff. It took a while for the food to build to the point that clients really trusted me in that area, and then suddenly it became that's all they knew me for. So I am known as a food and beverage photographer, and that's great. I get wonderful assignments, and I love doing it. At this point in my career, I loved the people I used to shoot a long time ago, but I'm not going to go back into shooting people because, again, we talk about locations, models, fees, hair and makeup, wardrobe. It's too expensive unless you're really going to say, I'm now a people shooter and build a book around that. Then you would have to make the investment. But I'm not prepared to do that. I'll just, ride out on the food. That's fine. But AI, well, now I can play with people again. Now I can explore what that looks like and what things I can do. So I love using the AI to do my people photography now, and see what that looks like. And it's taken me back to some of these things and getting excited about, doing these model shoots that, cost me next to nothing. So I'm just really enjoying that aspect of it. I mentioned before, I'm a product of the 80s and even some of the 70s. So as a 70s kid, I had a beer can collection. But my beer can collection was worth $2. I don't know why I stored it all these years. But before I got rid of it in the recycling can, I decided that, my biggest memory of that was my father and his friends smoking, cigarettes in the basement, drinking cheap beer and playing cards. And I thought, well, maybe I can do something like that. So I created this AI image, and I did it with the intention of actually photographing a couple of my favorite beer cans, the ones I had memories of, and stripping them into the shot. So that's what this is. This is kind of the ode to my beer can collection. I also thought about some of the times, I thought, what would it have been like if I'd had the skills I do now, when I was 18, 21, and going to discos and stuff. What would those images have looked like? And with AI, I could explore that. They talk about AI being used in therapy and for stuff, and it is cathartic, or I don't know what the word would be, but it does really bring these things up and bring feelings to the surface that maybe I haven't felt for a while. I did one. I don't have it in this deck, but I did one of my mom's cars. She had a '78 Monte Carlo that she just loved, and I did that just for fun. And the minute I saw the image appear, I was like, wow, I truly hadn't thought about that car for years, and I just had this memory of it, and it stirs all these emotions. So a lot of fun trying to just go back and recreate things. Like, what would I have done if I could do it differently with the skill sets I have now? And this one was just an early image that I loved with the VW bus and the color schemes you could get. I worked through so many different iterations of this. In the end, I added the lights in Photoshop, but the rest of the image is all just AI. We're shooting for Pillsbury, and we needed to do some cake slices, similar angle to this. And I was trying to think about lighting because I didn't like the way the previous packaging was done, and I was trying to think about what else could I do, and just exploring some things in AI. I was like, oh wait, I could have that light coming down instead of from the backside. I can have it coming down, and then maybe if some of the frosting stuck out, that might be a good idea. And so I was able to use this to kind of inspire me. It's nowhere close to where we ended, but it's just an inspiration idea, and it was something I could talk to the client about. Like, hey, what if we had the icing poking out a little bit? Do you like that idea? So we could talk through some stuff. So I used the AI. This was I'm going to blank on the name right now. Teaches on AI all the time. Sykes, Brian Sykes, I think. He had posted about using, when he was trying to show a client a billboard, and he used the stock image of a city scene with a billboard. They got distracted by the cars in the road or whatever it was. And he was using the example of making the background a watercolor, and then they could focus on the actual image. So, I thought, well, I could do the same thing because we shoot a lot of packaging work. And how do you show the packaging? It's just kind of boring by itself. We shot the little oranges that are on this poppy seed package. And I'm like, how can I show that? Do I want to build a kitchen? Do I want to find a place to put it? Do I want to just shoot it on gray? What can I do with it? And I thought about, what Brian had talked about with the watercolor background. So I created this watercolor background where I could strip in the image again, shot on gray, and just strip it in to the scene and hopefully make the client focus on the work that I did and not the scene, but let the scene be complementary. So I mentioned I had done ice cream last week, and this was one of the images we got. This happens sometimes when they're scooping. You don't get all the scoop, but there's a lot of good texture here. There's some, white chocolate over there on the side. So there's a lot of parts and things that we can use in post to combine and composite. And I thought, okay, I'll keep it because it's good for all of those parts and pieces, but it's missing the whole left side. And I thought about my retoucher, like, could he actually clone something on that left side? And there's probably no way that's going to happen. But then I decided, what about Photoshop with generative fill? Could I do it that way? And I literally rough circled, the space that was empty. And I got a generous amount of the ball and scoop included in that circle so it knew what I was trying to clone over. But I never, ever expected that. I mean, that just blew me away. I mean, it followed even the curve of the ice cream. It followed the focus. It dropped it off as it went around the side. That was the first try. From that to that, from a shot that's parts and pieces to, a finished image. That is, it's just nuts. I mean, I literally stood up from my computer like, are you kidding me? Like, we can do this now? So just amazing, amazing stuff on the rise. And again, a tool. I saved work, I saved time, I can do something with that. So this one was one I just did in the last couple of days. Clients will often these days say, we need this to work on, reels and on banner headers, so wide horizontal, tall vertical, they want it to work everywhere. And, you pull way back and you get a shot that you can crop a bunch of different ways, but anything that works okay everywhere doesn't work really good anywhere. It's not right. So, when possible, I try to shoot a vertical, I try to shoot a horizontal, but there's just not always time. With food, imagine the ice cream scoop. We shoot a vertical and then we go to the horizontal, it's gone. It's dead. It's melted. So you just can't. So I was playing with the AI and thinking, oh, this is a cool shot. Like, I like this. What if this were a billboard? Again, maybe a nonprofit or something. So this was the billboard, but you need other assets. Well, with Midjourney, you can say make square. So you get a square image. You can say make, wide, pull it back out, give it a wider image. So you get something even bigger to use where you need it for a different crop. You can even make it do a vertical. The challenge with this, though, was I wasn't really sure I liked the kid's body because it started to feel like an adult with a kid's head. And it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I thought, let's take that first image, the one that was very tight, horizontal, and let's go into generative fill and see what generative fill does. And this is what generative fill did in Photoshop, which is actually, I think, a little bit more authentic to what I wanted. The shirt and the body seem to match the kid. The sky is a little bit different, but again, it works. And just the option to do these things now to be able to expand that. And you could do that with a traditionally captured image. I could do the ice cream scoop and whatever background is on, I could extend the background in Photoshop. So you can do it with regular images, not just an AI created image. It's just there's so many tools now within the AI to do that. This series of images is the last stuff I'll show you, but this is an actual image. I did this shot exploring some people stuff just a few years ago. I'm a contributor for Adobe Premium Stock. So we created some video and still images that work together as a way to show, clients could purchase not only still images for a campaign, but video that went with it and kind of combine it. So it was a lot of short clips videos and a lot of still images. But I love this greenhouse and the shots we got and, the people inside. It was so good. I fed that into Midjourney and said, describe this. And so I got the description. And then I started playing with that and saying, a bar that's a greenhouse in Europe, and I got this. I'm like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I started talking about the Caribbean and drug running, and I got this. And I'm like, I got so many shots out of this prompt. It was amazing. And just, again, if you're building a set, you could take this and just go crazy. It just gives you so much vision. But you can also take the shot. I could put people in front of this, walking in front of it, like we had the girl with the stove. I could project this on a TV and have people in front of it, and it would be, you wouldn't even notice the background because you'd be focused on the people walking and the people moving in front. This one's the favorite because I told it to do a laundromat in a greenhouse. I didn't tell it to put water on the floor, but it did it, and that's what sells it. And I'm like, how does it know to do that? That's so cool. And then a greenhouse with the library. I envision just somebody hiding out in their jungle greenhouse with all these books and manuscripts and whatever else. So that's it. We have a little time, I think, for Q&A.
Wow.
All right, dude, Terry, that was fantastic. Man,
Thanks.
we are sitting here all together in one room. You can't tell, but just knocked our socks off with that. And my first thought was, here we are, all graphic designers, communication designers, and we're watching a food photographer and getting blown away. We're talking the same language, and I feel like if one thing AI is doing is it's kind of bridging the gap between a lot of these disciplines that we were usually siloed in. Which is such a great thing. Let's open it. How much time do we have for questions? About 5, 10?
About 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. We have some time, guys. So please just turn your camera on, do a hand if you have a question, guys. I'd love for you guys to do it live. Speak with Terry, and who's got a question? I'd love to hear, or a comment. Josh.
Hey Terry. Again, really great presentation. I think honestly, I was a little hungry throughout the presentation, but one thing I kind of wanted to ask was what's one thing that you would love to shoot one day, I guess, within the realm of food photography?
Well, I'm still trying to get McDonald's. That's about the only one I haven't done. I think I've done a Burger King and Wendy's and all of them, but McDonald's, we've tried to connect a few times, but it hasn't happened. So I guess that's one. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I get a lot of great projects, work with a lot of great designers. It's not just me doing this stuff, obviously. It's a team, the food stylists, everybody working together. And then the agency doing what they do with, taking those images and pushing them further and creating the assets that, show them off in such a wonderful way. So I don't know if there's something I'm dying to shoot. I always do love having a QSR, which is a quick service restaurant. So that's Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's, all that stuff. I always do love having one of them on my client roster, which I don't currently, because it's just always doing stuff and you're always seeing it in the market. So it's kind of a wish list of a client, not a specific one, but just the type of client. I really love that sort of, challenge of doing that stuff. But going back to my original idea of following your curiosity, I think it's really right now just me trying to explore, learn some stuff. There's so many things with the AI. I'm using ChatGPT to not only use for some image things, but mostly for emails to clients and writing stuff. And then, of course, with Midjourney seems to be my go-to, but I'm trying to experiment more with Stable Diffusion and DALL-E, and then even Leonardo. So I'm trying to branch it out some and do a lot of different things, but I'm just trying to stay curious, stay excited, and see where all this goes.
Well, thank you. Before we get to a couple other questions, I have a question for you, Terry. Nick and I and Gil were sitting in here and just writing a bunch of notes down that you mentioned something about practice, and you said that for the first 10 years, you did a lot of wedding shots, portraits, and stuff like that. And and these are practicing. And I keep telling our students, look, you're practicing and practicing, and then eventually that practice will lead into something that you're more passionate about. But it takes time. A lot of students do, they're a little anxious. They want to they look at their peers. Well, how come she's an art director, designer? Why am I just doing production? So can you expand that it takes a long time to not only hone your skill set, but to find your lane down the line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did. I spent a lot of time working at different photographers. I worked for P&G for a while, so I got a lot of broad experiences, and that helped me to figure out what I really like to do. I worked for a newspaper for a while. We were talking about paste up. I used the wax machines to do the paste up at the newspaper. So having all those varied experiences really showed me what I wanted to do. And when I decided to do food photography, was before the word foodie even existed. And it's hard to imagine now, but in the early 80s, really nobody wanted to shoot food because it was very difficult. The style was perfectionism, and that was very hard to achieve and took a long time, and it could be a little bit tedious. So a lot of people in my industry didn't like shooting food, and that was something that I felt I was comfortable with, and I seemed to have a knack for it. So that's why I pushed into that area. But of course, early on, I was doing everything else. I was shooting whatever I could shoot to build my business. And I know early on, I did a lot of shots over for free because I screwed up. I loaded the film wrong. I exposed some of the wrong. I was out of focus. I made all kinds of mistakes. But that built me a reputation that whatever it is, I'll make it right. So eventually, I could rely on that a little bit more. And I got my skill set better and, kept moving along and moving up the ladder. And like I said, to the point where I got those clients I had dreamed about in my 20s.
That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. And all right, thank you. Thank you for sharing that thought in here. Emilio, you have a question?
Yeah. So, real quick, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I just adjusted these things on this end. Terry, what do you think of the new Leica camera that's got the content authentication built into it?
I saw just a little bit on that. I mean, I'm not. I mean, aside from photojournalistic, events and things like that, I'm not big on this content, clarification and stuff. Photoshop blew all that out of the water years ago. We haven't known what's real for a long time. So I don't see it that way. I see it as pushing the boundary and doing as much as we can, being as crazy as we can. I know that can be problematic when we're talking about news reporting and other things that influence people. But in the realm of just what I do, I love, being able to do whatever I can do. So the idea of authenticating it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. I'm just curious, like with as much AI as is happening out there, will content authentication become a norm across everything?
Mm-hmm. Interesting, but I think in advertising, we're always pushing it. So
yeah, we haven't been authentic forever, for sure.
Awesome. Brittany, what's your question?
Hello. So first, I just want to say thank you for being here and giving us this amazing lecture. I'm literally on like Firefly on the side, like testing it out now. And I wanted to ask, what is like the specific like kind of wording you would put in? Because as I was doing it, I put like no people on there. Like I'm trying to find a kitchen counter for like some of my products. And I would put no people, but it would give people. So I just wanted to ask, like, what is like the wording you would use?
Yeah, every platform's a little different in the way they handle it. Not uncommon that you put in no this, no that, and it does it anyway. The algorithms are always changing. Everything's always adjusting. I just try to keep trying different things until I can get there. If you can feed something in, I don't know if Firefly has it in Midjourney, has the description feature. So sometimes I can feed an image in and be like, how would you describe this? What would you say? And then find the keywords that it's, picking out there, and maybe I can use those. Just what you're doing is what I do. No people, no this, no that. You can, try no humanity, or, sometimes it's just finding the word. An early thing that I think I talked to Vilio about a year ago was like smiling. You think, oh, smiling, that makes sense. People smiling. And they had this god awful grin, looks like a horror film, and it just wasn't working. And then I saw somebody wrote grinning instead of smiling. They used grinning, and I was like, oh, let me try that. Yeah, that's a normal smile. So it's just trying to dig, trying different things, I joke that AI is making us all smarter because we have to keep researching words and going, well, what does that word really mean?
Yeah.
Even early on, I used photorealistic. Well, that's a style of painting too. So every now and then, like, things were coming up as paintings, and I was like, why? So we're just all learning, and the goal right now is to experiment and try things, because I think of this as when I had a 3.2 megapixel camera. It's my very first digital camera, and the stuff I shot on, of course, was horrible, and it's not, you can't reproduce it. It's 3.2 megapixel. But it was really just the way to learn. I would never use those images today, and I think that's the way AI will be. 5 years from now, all these images I showed today, I'll probably be like, oh god, that was so whatever. So yeah, just experiment.
Perfect. Jalissa, what do you got?
Hello, Terry. Just want to again also say thank you for your presentation. It was so cool to see all the variety of projects that you've done regarding photography. My question is, we all know that AI is pretty good so far from the results that we ask it to do. But I was wondering, what are some improvements have you noticed that AI still needs to be improved upon? Because AI is like still growing. It's not like exactly like perfect and all.
I think the biggest things for me are more control. When we can really control the camera perspectives and the lenses, you can say things now. You can say wide angle, you can say aerial view, you can say low view, full body, and you'll come close. But when you can really control it, and then when you can really, create a scene and then actually 3D that scene, because like it's not as important for me right now, but a lot of my friends I know want to create a scene and then they need that same scene from another angle, maybe overhead, maybe down low, or maybe around the side. So when we can actually get into some of that 3D realm where we can move the camera and we can turn the objects, then we're really, yeah.
I agree.
What was that? I didn't hear it.
Oh, we were just saying here, that's exactly it. It's like, let's say you got the perfect image and result, but you're like, oh, if I can only have the camera maybe to the side, and it replicates all the detail, it almost creates a whole new one when you do a prompt, right? So like,
yeah.
But the best thing to think about is it is so new. And like you said, I'd say in 2 to 3 years, we're going to have such control over those things that we're going to have. And I think Firefly has really kind of pioneered the right side panel with all those controls, that, and even changing the camera angle, whatever it might be. So they're all trying, and I just can't wait to see where it goes. Like, in the next year or two, it's kind of maybe even 6 months, right? It's unreal.
Yeah.
And just so you know too, Terry, a lot of them are, particularly in my class, we're doing food packaging right now, and they're experimenting with the Midjourney and Firefly backgrounds, and we're superimposing. And Dimension is a perfect way to bring those together because of the lighting, because it can match the lighting of your background. So it's pretty amazing. That was great. Any other questions before we move on? We good?
Final thoughts from Terry?
Yeah, I think so. Any final thoughts, Terry? They're all they're building their, this is so new to them too. So like, even just the whole curiosity part, I think that's my favorite thing that you started with. How do you keep so curious with these things? And they're just starting their careers,
Yeah, that's the challenge, is just to keep following what you're curious about. Don't get stuck on one path. Always be looking for what's coming down the road, and be open wherever that inspiration comes from. For me, it was CNBC. Who would have thunk that? I subscribed to how many magazines and, email lists and everything, and I learned about it from CNBC. So just keep your eyes open, and, things will probably come to you, and just pique an interest and just follow that. See where it goes.
I love it. All right. Give everybody another big round of applause for Terry. Thank you, bro.
Thanks.
So exciting, man. I love seeing this stuff, and it's really making us all think even more so about what we're working on and everything. So awesome. All right. Avilio, are you here still? I want to make sure we got you. I don't see you on my board.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes,
There's that sound. All right. Let me introduce you guys to Avilio Matos. So Avilio and I met, it was about a year ago, I'd say, maybe just shy of a year ago. And I see this guy posting all over LinkedIn, and he starts showing packaging from AI. And if you know me, I was like, wait a minute, stop the press. Who's this guy? And how's he getting such incredible stuff from AI and packaging? So I made a comment to him, and he immediately reached out and said, let's talk about it. And I was on his podcast, and we had such a great conversation. And you really did change my perceptions. You kind of like all the things I brought up, you had such a really good counterpoint to it. And I really feel like not just in packaging, but in AI specific for us, you're really kind of leading the charge and kind of putting a lot of that stuff out there. It's how I got to meet Terry, because he had Terry on the next episode, and I was like, "Who's this guy? we got to meet them all." So with that, I asked both these guys, including Terry and Evelio, to kind of put this together. So I want to introduce Evelio. He is a industry recognized packaging design expert known for his ability to engineer strategic user experiences, but also a big focus on sustainability systems and packaging. Share that with the industry now, and I love seeing you so active on this and being kind of one of those leaders out there. So please give Evelio a big round of applause, guys, and a welcome. And I'll turn it over to you.
Right. Awesome. So, yeah, so my name is Evelio. And while Terry was talking, I was looking online. There's a bunch of stuff I want to share. But I've got this presentation. Mine's not as like upbeat and happy. Mine's like end of the world stuff. So let's get to it. Oh, hang on. Let me share this properly here. So in the meantime, if you guys have any questions
for it, do you have the access for it, or is it working? Share?
Yeah, it should be. I think it's my.
Okay.
I think it's on my end.
All right, no worries.
So let's see. All right. So now let me get this going. Here's the funny thing is that AI is super new, right? It's fresh, it's new, and you got a bunch of old guys talking about it. That's the part that blows me away.
Yeah, right?
Right. It should be all these young people like just crushing it and killing it, but no, it's old guys like, hey, look what we can do. So that makes me laugh a little bit.
I think we can see the generation.
Yeah, right. So you guys can see the full screen here. Awesome. All right. So this is brand new. This just happened a couple hours ago. This is Greg Brockman, who's one of the founders, leaders in OpenAI. He just quit because Sam Altman, one of the founders of OpenAI, one of the two main founders of OpenAI, was ousted by the board. And, you know, Twitter's like on fire. You know, the first job OpenAI took was Sam's, which makes you ask if his job's not safe, is yours going to be safe? But yeah, like somebody said earlier, AI changes so fast. It's crazy. But that just happened like a little bit ago. So the typical presentation I do, I kind of run through a bunch of different things. This one, I'm just going to like just charge right in from a design standpoint and kind of what AI means and what you should be doing, what you can be doing, what maybe we need to look at as designers instead of being so enthralled by this. You know, I love sharing this slide here. This is James Dyson, and I was just at his museum last week, where, you know, when he first created this, when he first created the vacuum, it took him like over 5,000 prototypes. It took him 5 years to build this thing, which as a designer, you're like super stoked about it. You're like, oh my gosh, I love the iteration. I love building all the different processes. I love, you know, all the tweaks, right? Because that's what we do every single day as creatives. Like we look at something, you have it on screen, you go grab a sandwich, you come back and you see it on screen. You're like, oh, let me make this tweak. You make these little changes here and there. And that's what he did to perfect this product. But if you had a AI assistant that didn't get tired, that didn't care, whether it was day or night, it just kept iterating and iterating for him, would it have taken him this long? Would it have taken him 5 years to do this? Or would it have taken him 5 months or 5 days, 5 weeks? Where it's like, how quickly can we move through things with AI as a co-pilot? A lot of times people are like super excited that AI is like this next big thing. I've got all my prompts down at the bottom so you can see what they are if you want to create prompts. But like the big hype everywhere is like AI is everywhere. It's the next big thing. But what I like to think of it is, it's actually the last big thing. It's the last big thing that humans are going to create without the assistance of artificial intelligence, without an algorithm there to support us. If you start using all, you know, the Photoshops, the AIs, all the different software now that has AI built into it, you're not going to create anything new without AI. So at some point, it's going to be 90% you, 10% AI, and then it'll flip 90% AI, 10% you. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And hang on, let me see if there's any, I can answer any chats if there's anything going on at the same time too.
I think you're good.
All right. And you guys can stop me and ask me anything along
Sure.
the way. Yeah, so it's looking at it as the last big thing that we create on our own is pretty insane when you kind of think about it, because we're super proud of what we do. So that's me. My name is Vali Matos. I'm a creative director over at a company called idpdirect.com. We do packaging for luxury brands. I host a Packaging Unboxed podcast. And Nick's on here. So you got to hunt him down because I think he says a bad word. But you can scan the QR code and go follow. I talked to a lot of different people about AI. Terry, Sherry, Gerardo, all these are people that are doing amazing things with it. So you can definitely check that out.
I put a link in the chat so they can find it easily.
Awesome. But all right, so where did all this stuff start from, right? About like a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, started playing with Midjourney. Midjourney came out. I was plugging in different phrases. I was seeing what people were doing. And this is like, these are actual results. These are the top left one is my very first result that I got, like 18 months ago. And it's like, it was cool for a second. And then it was crap because I'm like, well, I just spent, a few minutes putting this together and I got something I can't use for anything. It's not even inspiration. It's like nothing. But I did see that it did have the idea of what I was talking about, right? It's got a Louis Vuitton sort of logo on there. There's Colgate happening there. The bottom right, it's kind of like a Netflixy look and feel. So it was getting the gist, but man, this was terrible. And no matter how much time I spent plugging words in, removing words, fine tuning it, I realized I was just wasting a lot of time with AI. And I'm like, this is not going anywhere today. So I kind of backed out of it. I really got kind of sick of it. Then I saw on LinkedIn a buddy of mine who I'd been working with for like 3 years on some crazy random projects that had nothing to do with AI. He was posting like the most amazing images of Nike shoes and like jars with products inside of them and like themes for movies and stuff. And his name is Chris Branch. And you can hunt him down on LinkedIn. I've got a link on here for him as well. I'm like, dude, how do you do that stuff? And he goes, oh, well, here's a YouTube link for all the videos you need to watch. Here's like all the links to all the blog posts you need to watch, you need to read. And I'm like, dude, I don't have that kind of time. I don't have time to go through all of this stuff and actually learn it. Like my brain doesn't work that way. I'm like, I've got $500. I'll give you $500 if you teach me everything that you know in 1 hour. And he's like, done, let's do it. And he's over in Liverpool. So we like scheduled some time that worked for us. And he walked me through everything. And right after that call with him, my images were insane. Like just learning how to prompt things, how to organize the words, the way that you can put different terms in different places within the prompt, how it gives it a different level of importance, textures, and kind of finding out like it knew what an emboss was. It knew what a foil stamp was. It knew like all these different terms. And you start playing with them. And you're like, wow, so you can get something super complex like this Alexander McQueen inspired bag on the top left, or the super simple minimalist Carlios packaging in the middle there. And this is just strictly packaging, strictly terms. You can see the DBoss on the Gucci bag. The Gucci logo is full. There's no like Photoshop happening post AI image. And a lot of people are doing that, which is cool. You can kind of combine different AIs to make things happen. And it was awesome. It was cool. I created a LinkedIn group called Packaging AI. You can go follow that too, where I was posting images. People were posting images to get featured on there. I think I grew to like almost 4,000 people in like 2-3 weeks. And then I got super sick and tired of this. Like I got burnt out on AI. And the reason is like I wasn't creating anything anymore. I was more of a passenger in this vehicle. Like I had zero control of what was happening. what the results were. I was just playing with it, fine tuning things, but it wasn't like the most amazing thing. You know, and brands were still calling. They're like, "Hey, I love what you're doing over here. I'd love to see, how can you help me deploy this in my brand?" I was still talking to companies. I was still talking to agencies on helping them how to do it, helping them use it, but I wasn't excited about it. I was kind of showing them these examples where you can be on a call with a client, you can be talking through an idea, and then use the terms that they're using to actually create prompts, and then quickly just send it back to them and go like, "Is this what you're talking about?" In this instance, like, CVS was talking about different colored packaging and how it looks online. It's like, okay, well, what's that look like in, what does different colored packaging look like on a mobile site? So you've got images of packaging, pick images with models, images with graphics, and all of this 100% other than the CVS logo was just results from AI, right? And the client can look at it and say, "Oh, you know what? I like the photography style of the bottom left image. I like the hierarchy of what's happening in, the middle image, and the kind of the color that's happening in this one." And then that'll help our packaging stand out, right? It's not a all or nothing. It's not like this is what it'll look like. It's let's have a conversation around different features. And it might show something that you wouldn't have considered. It'll 100% show something you wouldn't have considered. It may be ugly, maybe great. But I think what's great is that because the client knows that these are super fast iterations, they're not expecting, high fidelity. They're looking for general concepts. And as a designer, it's your job to kind of do this. And I kind of joked about much old guy showing you guys how to do cool stuff that's new. It's kind of not a joke. Like, I think you all need to be using AI on a daily basis, practicing, testing. And this is the one part that everybody that's of a certain age fails to do. And that is that you fail to share all of these concepts, what you're working on, what you're practicing, because you're afraid of being judged. Us old guys, we don't give a shit anymore, right? There's no fear of judgment. We're just sharing it. And the number of brands that are calling to be like, "Hey, how do you do that?" outweighs the number of people going, "Hey, you shouldn't do that." So as you want to create things, if you want to build, partnerships with brands, if you want to work with certain agencies, like, now's the time to start sharing and getting people to recognize you. This is a brand called Casablanca. They did an entire marketing campaign, photography, models, fashion, everything was all AI generated. Then they reverse engineered the fashion to actually produce these products. And it was all around AI. All the brands like 6-7 months ago were super hyped on this. Then a company called Notco, these guys use AI not for imaging, but AI for finding the right type of protein that's a plant-based protein that can replace different types of animal proteins in different products. And then with AI, they develop what the product should be. So it's not just about image generation. It's like, how can you deploy it in all these different areas of a business? And that was kind of like a rant on the you got to be posting stuff. And we're back to the presentation. We'll kind of bounce around. But I think, again, it's like, if you're not sharing these things, if you're not seeing something online and posting about it, and as lame and as old people as LinkedIn is, like, that's the place to be. That's the I'd say that it's the Twitter, but even Twitter is like old, right? X is old. But LinkedIn is definitely the place that you want to be posting. You want to be tagging brands. You want to be tagging agencies if you want people to notice you. I taught packaging at ASU, and like day one, it's like, if you can get 100,000 likes on a post on LinkedIn, you're going to pass the class. Like, that's all you got to do. Nobody posted a damn thing. Nobody even tried, which was crazy to me.
Is that what I got to do to get everybody on LinkedIn?
That's like LinkedIn is insane. It's so powerful.
So true.
Everybody
Dude.
is on
so
it.
true. You're wasting your time anywhere else.
Yeah, 100%. Nobody's looking for this on Facebook. Nobody's looking for this on Twitter. It's like LinkedIn is the place to go, no matter what agency you want to work at or what brand you want to work at. But then, like, recently, Coke used AI to develop the packaging, to develop the flavor for this new product. And at this point, I think I was pretty much hating AI. Like, okay, now it's hit mass appeal, I guess. and it sucked. It made me really angry with it. I think this pretty much killed it for me. And that was a few months ago. But now it's cool again, right? Because like leather jackets are cool for old guys, but it's cool again. And again, you can see the prompt here. I asked for a white T-shirt with a leather motorcycle jacket, and actually blended white and motorcycle jacket. So again, just like you get some pretty cool surprises. But the reason that AI is cool again is that I was just, and I guess another thing too is like, for me personally, AI has pretty much filled my entire passport. Last week I was in London. The week before that I was in Monaco. But going to Monaco was where I kind of got reinvigorated about AI. They asked me to speak on artificial intelligence and design, but they're like, we want you to speak with somebody else on stage. I'd never done that before, somebody I'd never met before. And his name is Shay. Now, Shay and I are like really good buddies developing new stuff. And this is something that Shay did using AI. He's like, it took me like 2 minutes to put this together, to prompt this and execute it.
So now the 3D and the motion are just fully new to the AI.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, this is insane. Like, and this was his first prompt. So he went back in and refined it. But it is endless and it is beautiful. And I can just watch this all day long. But this is just from one prompt. And you can see how long this goes. And you can control the length and the speed. And it's crazy. I can't tell you what he used to do this. But you can find Shay online, and he will be more than happy to share. So,
oh, awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Get your phones out. You can scan the QR code, go follow him. But he's not a packaging designer. He's an automotive designer. So he develops vehicles, motorcycles. He's an engineer, right? So engineers are a little bit different. They're not quite as cool and savvy as designers are. So like, it's like just ones and zeros. But man, this guy's awesome. I love the way that he approaches this, because he is so technical, and then I'm more on the creative side. So together we're actually making some really cool things, because he loves digging in and finding out how to push this further. So this is one prompt that generated 500 variations of a bottle design in under an hour with one prompt. And again, I can't even tell you what he's doing, because now he's like built his own system that works locally versus working in the cloud. But it is insane.
Was this Mid-Journey, but he built something to?
No, it's not even Mid-Journey anymore.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Is like people are now taking it off of like Mid-Journey or Dolly and building their own system, because it's all open. It's all open source. And then he's able to combine a variety of different things. He just shared with me, he's like, you got to go and get Hypersketch. So Hypersketch is something you can drop onto your iPad. You can sketch and then take that concept and you can flip through different styles, and it'll take your sketch and turn it into like real models in a variety of different styles, which is nuts. And then there's another one he just shared with me. It was called Krea, Krea. And he's like, you got to dig in this. I haven't even dug into it. I haven't even opened up the website, so I couldn't tell you what it is. Yeah, but crazy stuff. Shay's awesome. And he's like, a lot of times we're looking at inspiration that exists. He's like, what if we take all of our gears and make them in the glass? Like, what does that look like? He's like, what if we take a specific product and change the materiality of it? Right. Because he's like, you're going to find something in here that's going to inspire you to do something completely different. Right. It'll give you a different look, a different set of terms for fragrance bottles, or pump bottles, or whatever it is that you're working on. There's something in here that you're going to find that you're going to like. I love all the textures of the gears that's happening on here. I'd love to be able to implement that into packaging somehow.
It's almost like opening an invitation to something you'd never would experience before, because now you have this tool. It's kind of like when the search bar started. Everyone's like, I want to try this. I want to try that. But what an interesting idea to take and say, what would gears look like in glass? Like just that alone.
Yeah.
Who would have the week to explore that? Now you're doing it in seconds.
Yeah. And it's,
Wow.
it's like, it's really like looking for inspiration, right? And you don't know what this is going to inspire, but you're going to remember this. You're going to see this a week, 2 weeks, a year from now. You'll have a project on your desk and you're like, oh, you know, it'd be cool. That thing I saw, you know, or something that developed from that. Our friend Sherry, she's somebody else that's amazing. She's been on the podcast also. You can scan the QR code and follow her. She's not a designer either. She went to school to be a poet, right? And that's the secret here, language. So being able to control language. I'm seeing a lot of copywriters are killing it here because copywriters have a different angle. They see words. They can combine words to get an idea of what the results are going to be. Now this helps them kind of fine tune that. They can put words in here, put in different styles. They can look at different languages that may be able to redirect a prompt, right? So a lot of I've got some partners in Germany, and they're always saying, "Can you translate this to the German? Because we don't have all the flowery language that the Americans do, right? It's like black, you know. For us, it's like, oh, it's like a dark, deep, romantic black. They're like, no, it's black. Like that's it, right? So you can use some of their terms in German that are really pointed to be specific on something that you're creating, or you can create, you know, use something in French or even Latin, you know, languages that don't even exist anymore, and put it in there and see what kind of results you're getting. But Sherry's not a packaging designer. She's not a designer at all, or an illustrator. But like the illustrative style that she has on the top right is amazing. That's just a handful of prompts. Being able to take the Heath Ledger image and make it look like what he looks like today. You know, there's a lot of realism there. And then of course, like the Absolute Baccarat, like taking two brands, combining them, that would make sense for Absolute, putting this out there. And she's sharing this on LinkedIn, and she's getting paying gigs on LinkedIn from this stuff that she's posting. And this is somebody that's not a designer getting paying gigs, designing stuff. So if you're graduating as a designer, why the hell are you guys not posting stuff to get this kind of work? Gerardo, he's another buddy of the show. You can scan this and follow him. He teaches over at Art Center. He and I kind of got started about the same time. We were texting at like 3 o'clock in the morning for, again, another group of old guys, just like 3 o'clock in the morning. We can't sleep because we're just trying everything out we possibly can, prompting and testing and going back and forth. Like, I got this result from this prompt. And he's like, well, I got this result from the same prompt, and then trying to fine tune stuff together. But now he's going to move away from that, and he's using Midjourney, and then he goes to Let's Enhance, and then he transfers that over to Katem, and he's actually 3D printing physical pieces that were developed using AI, right? And with Katem, it allows you to go in there and kind of fine tune the shape. So you still have control of this. You can still adjust like the lid, the proportions, all these different things that you can do. So it's pretty crazy. And then being able to 3D print. So maybe spending 15 minutes on the front end, and then however long it takes you to 3D print to get an actual prototype. Crazy.
And to do a one-off like that is was impossible 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, insane. And it's funny because like I included him in my presentation in Monaco, and like P&G was like, oh, that's really cool. We've never seen that. I'm like, yeah, just talk to Gerardo, right? Like, I'm just connecting them to him, and they're like, all right, we're going to talk to him, figure out how he's doing this and how we can incorporate this in our process. From his perspective, he's able to go into a brand and kind of teach them how to do this. And same thing with, you know, Sherry helping, and like we can all create a business just from this alone, right? So as a young designer, you've got fresh eyes. Be in here, be testing, be looking, look at all the new things that are happening, figure out how to connect these things, do what you're doing, whether you're in, graphic design, packaging design, video, photography, doesn't matter. It's like all of this stuff is kind of converging and coming together to create one thing, which is just content generation, image generation, concept development. Like, how can you do that better than somebody that's not using this? How can you do this better than the old guys in the business at the moment?
Don't try too hard, guys.
we want to eat too, but
okay, this is crazy. This is some of the best packaging I've seen yet.
Dude, so this is Chris Branch. This is my buddy over in Liverpool. He's the guy that taught me everything for $500. After that, he actually launched a business called Seedly, which charges $500 to teach you everything about AI in an hour. And he's like booked solid. But he is not a packaging designer. He's not a designer at all, but he worked on a program for Coke AI. Together, we worked on reimagining Beck's beer packaging, which came out like I don't know, like 6 months ago. But again, he's not a packaging designer. He's just able to really refine the prompts. He's combining a variety of different AI models to do this. And I mean, you look at any one of these, I would buy every single one of these products as is right now. The illustration on the zombios, and this isn't something that he's prompting and getting these images. He's prompting the cereal, then he's prompting the zombies. He's probably got a variety of different of those zombie heads, and then he's using, putting that stuff into the model, then probably putting it into Photoshop, and then bringing in the logos, and maybe combining the backgrounds of the product. But you can see like the sharp edges on the box, right? Like you can see the depth of field that's happening here. So it does require a level of artistry and knowledge on photography of how to put this stuff together. But even like the reflection that you're getting on the surface on the haunted honeycombs, like insane. The phantom puffs, like just the shape of the cereal looking like little ghosts, that then ties into the actual ghosts. I mean, all of these little details are insane, and these are things that you can crank out. You can put this together in an hour. If you're looking for a job and you're wanting to go work at Kellogg's or wherever, and you can see in the ghoulish grains, the Kellogg's logo is kind of wonky. So that's probably an AI logo there, right? So if you're wanting to get a job at a brand, why not spend a day, build out AI packaging for that brand to put in your portfolio? Because they don't care about the portfolio image that you've got in there of a 6-pack of beer, right? Or whatever these other things are. They want to see those because they want to see how you think, but they all want to see something that's personalized to them. So you can spend a day, crank out images like this and be like, this is how I'm working in AI. You're going to blow away anybody that's sitting across from you at a desk, and they're going to want to look at the rest of your portfolio. And it's not that this is what you're delivering. It's just you're showing that this is how you're thinking, that you're embracing today's technology to solve their problems in business today. So Chris Branch is amazing. Follow him. He does crazy things. He got like 200,000 followers on LinkedIn at this point. But like for me, there's a new perspective here, right? There's a new point of view, which is we've been looking at artificial intelligence as like a co-pilot, like it's sitting next to us and it's helping us move forward, and we're just outward looking. I always like to look for the problem and see how things are going to get screwed up. So I always talk about how AI can replace people. AI can replace salespeople, and it can replace purchasing, replace marketing, designers, executives, CEOs. There's a company in China that replaces CEOs and all the executives with AI, and their stock doubled. There's a company here in the US that is an education platform. Its stock split, basically lost by 50%, going down by 50% because the CEO on their stock call basically said, ChatGPT is going to put us out of business, right? That statement just cut their entire stock price in half. But the one part that I always talk about is like it's going to replace the consumer. And every designer that I talk to, I'm like, dude, AI is going to replace the consumer. They're like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, or God, I've never thought about that. Or I don't think it's going to happen. It's not realistic, but it is. And I'm going to tell you why. All right. So this is a dog that doesn't exist thanks to AI. But if you've got a dog, I always ask if you've got a dog, people raise their hands. But if you've got a dog, I'm sure that you feed this dog. And if you feed this dog, the dog is the one that's consuming the food. You are essentially the algorithm. You're the one that's going to the store, and you're the one that's deciding what food to feed it. What is the decision-making process in terms of the food? It's not up to the dog. It's not up to your dog going, oh, I like these shapes, or I like these flavors, or I like this crunch or this size of kibble. They're just eating whatever the hell you give them. So you're the one that's making the decision. You're the algorithm in this case. This example here that I show is taking IM's ugly packaging, running it through Midjourney, asking it to redesign it for a younger audience, healthier, blah, blah, blah. And it's given me examples on the far right side. Amazing packaging from shitty packaging. But back to the algorithm component, the dog needs to eat. You as the algorithm are deciding based on your own scenario what your finances are. You know, can you afford an $80 a month bag? Can you afford a $30 a month bag? Are you looking for something that's healthy? Are you looking for something that's vibrant? It's funny because like in China, if the dog food actually shows more dogs on it, it's got a higher likelihood to sell, right? So, and by more dogs, it's like a variety of different dogs, like little dogs and big dogs and dark dogs and light dogs. Like that's what people are looking for. It's like, oh, okay, this is for every brand. Where in the US, it's like, oh, I've got one big, beautiful image of a dog. And that's what we're looking for. We're trying to connect what our dog looks like versus there. It's like, well, our dog might be a combination of dogs. But it's like you're making these decisions for your dog without conferring with your dog, right? You're not asking your dog, what do you like? Do you like the green bag? Do you like the red bag? Do you like this? Do you like that? They just eat whatever you give them as often as you give them. So this is AI Elon. And when we think about the consumer being replaced by AI, which is essentially what's happened with your dog food, you're the AI in that instance. With Tesla, your Tesla vehicle can order parts for itself and schedule maintenance for itself. That's a consumer decision that doesn't have to be made by you. It will check with you. And I know there's been issues, and that kind of gets into some different biases as well. It's like, well, what if I can get that same part somewhere else for cheaper? I can get it installed faster. It's taking away a lot of those decision-making processes from the consumer side of things, but it's something that's a reality today. It's not completely foreign. So we kind of keep going, pushing that out a little bit further to like the Internet of Things, right? This was a big term a while ago. I don't even know if this is a term that anybody under the age of like 30 is familiar with anymore. But this is still a thing. People are still studying this. People are still building for this Internet of Things that has never arrived, but it's sort of like slowly creeping in. It's kind of like, it's not a big boom. It's like this little creep. And I don't know, when we like think about like how all of these things come together, you know, the example I always use is my refrigerator. So right now, my fridge has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I don't know who's plugging their fridge to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but I can do that. I haven't because it's weird, but essentially I can put my milk in my fridge. I can scan it as it goes in. And allegedly it's supposed to be able to tell me like when I've run out, right? And like help me build a shopping list. Let me know when things are going bad. That's still like too much information out there, but that's kind of weird, but it's possible. And with a couple tweaks, I'm sure it's even more, you know, we can refine that even further. A few years ago, there was a thing called these Amazon buttons that were like the dots. So if you ran out of your trash bags or any of these specific products, you push the button and tomorrow you'd have that on your doorstep. You didn't have to actually log on and purchase, right? So like these two things have nothing to do with AI. But today also Amazon can walk into my door, you know, right through my front door and place products inside. If they were delivering food, they can walk into my house, open my refrigerator, put the food into my refrigerator. So back to the point of AI replacing the consumer. There's nothing that says that my fridge can't have AI built into it, where I put my, you know, I run out of milk. It sees that I'm running out of milk. It can place the order for me because it's possible with these buttons in the past. So we can just eliminate the buttons, have it place the order directly for me, have somebody walk in, put it into my refrigerator. And I've had zero touch points on that consumer purchase. Now, my fridge can build an idea of who I am based on what I'm buying. If I like full fat, skim milk, if I like glass bottles, plastic bottles, quarts, gallons, and it can start building this persona of who I am and start making buying decisions based on that. that can extend out to my closet, my pantry, all parts of my life where I don't have to make any of these decisions because really I don't care. I don't want to make those decisions. You know, nobody loves going to the grocery store to do their weekly buy. You might love going there to like buy one special thing, but you're not like, oh my God, I get to do this all over again the rest of my life. You know, it can make decisions based on menus and all these different things that can happen. So the question that I pose is, if AI becomes the consumer, then as designers, you're no longer designing for humans. You have to design for an algorithm. And that's one thing that we don't really talk about is, what does the algorithm care about? What are you designing for? And what do they base their decisions on? So I took this pack of Old Mount Cider. I ran it through ChatGPT, accessible to everybody. And I asked it, if AI was making the purchasing decision on this pack, what does it care about? You know, and it tells you because it has no shame. It'll tell you, right? So if you want to improve the sell-through to AI, then you got to prioritize data. You got to simplify the design. You've got to implement standardized data tags, adding QR codes, NFC tags, provide structural data for quick algorithmic assessment. So really what it cares about is data. And what does that look like? It looks like this, right? You got a QR code that can lead you to quick information. You've got ingredients, allergen information. Make sure that I don't have, you know, it'll know my health history, my medical history. It'll know what I'm allergic to. It'll let me know, it'll buy this or not buy it based on my allergen. Alcohol by volume, it knows how much I drink. Maybe 4% is too high for me. Maybe 4% is not enough for me. Maybe I'm going to AA. Maybe it's like, hey, we're not buying alcohol. You know, these are all the decisions that AI can make for you at some point, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be that far off. But you can see from a design standpoint, it's not as attractive as the other one. But AI doesn't care about attractive. AI cares about the data. And that's the thing, is like one thing that we're not considering is what happens when AI, as we move forward, makes these decisions for us, and how does it change everything? Another plug, you can go listen. I think it was like two weeks ago, I basically interviewed artificial intelligence, asking it what happens when it becomes the consumer. And she just tells you, you know, she just tells you, she sits there.
The future is wild, dude. A world where AI is both creator and consumer could bring some major changes to the global economy, increase productivity. AI can work faster and more efficiently than humans, potentially leading to increased output and economic growth.
Yeah. And she's got a sense of humor too, which is insane. Like she's
she needs a job, so of course she does.
Yeah. But yeah, for any of you guys out there that want to get started and kind of check it out, you know, here's a QR code. This is a book that I created on how to get started with designing packaging with AI. It's completely free.
Highly recommend it, guys. This changed everything for me. Yeah, what a great PDF.
And that's it.
Thank you, man. Everybody, give it up. I'm a little scared. That's wonderful. I think it's interesting. Oh, you got to mute yours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I think it's interesting that you are showing such an interesting prediction. I thought it when they did that ghostwrite thing on Gmail, where it looks at a whole train of your email and it could reply back to the person that just emailed you. And I thought, what if that person's using Ghostwriter too? You've got AI talking to AI. Will it ever come to a conclusion? Will it ever have a solution? You know, so it's kind of like what you just showed with packaging and branding in specific. It almost, could it strip out like the importance of a brand if it's more about what's the perfect product for you and your preferences?
Yep.
Does brand even have a say in this anymore?
No, that's just it. Is it doesn't really care, right? It doesn't care if it's Kellogg's or Miller. It's just what makes sense for Nick, right?
Yeah.
And with personalized digital printing of products, and there's companies like, you know, Resize Pack, which actually can make boxes to scale on the fly and like wrap them around a product. I mean, I can have my entire pantry looking like Charles Ames, you know, faced it, right? It'll look modern, or I can have it look like Steve Jobs, refrigerator.
Yeah.
Like there's, from a design standpoint, yeah, brands don't matter. And that's the crazy part.
It almost reminds me of when the private label brands like the plain wraps came out in grocery stores like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Same idea. Like it just said corn in a can, remember? And it was like it was so medical, so just like, here's the information. And like, is that something we should be thinking about even as we do our designs now? Like, I think there's something important about that communication, what it needs to be.
I think you can, as a designer, be creating both. Right. So I create, and I'll share this link with you, Nick, and you can share it with your students. I created my own GPT. It's a Pocket Creative Director, which allows you to upload an image of your design and it'll come back with feedback, and it'll say, here's what you can do. But you can also ask it, if this is going to be purchased by AI, how can I adjust it? And I think, again, if you're looking for a job, if you're going out there looking to work with studios, kind of getting back to the point of getting hired, it's like, I don't care what studio you're looking to work for. If you're looking to work for like Stranger and Stranger or Pentagram or whoever, see the kind of work that they do, tailor your work towards what they do, create some stuff on your own, create it with AI, run it through AI, get some feedback. And then that's what you show, right? Like showing them that you can manage AI with what they're doing, but also have your voice in there is important, right? Nobody wants to hire somebody that can only do AI. You have to have a design perspective, but showing how you can use it in your workflow, I think is the key to getting hired today. Because most agencies are calling Nick, myself, Terry, and Gerard to be like, hey, how can I use this? So if you're the one that's going in saying, hey, here's how I'm using it, there's no reason that they wouldn't bring you in.
Hey, Emilio, before we ask students to before I ask some questions, I want to pick up back what Nick asked, the question about the labeling, and you bring about really a fascinating point about consumers and the brand, and it's the white labeling, right? You have a big brand that actually comes up with a product, but different companies could take that and repackage it, labeling that. Will that have? Where do you see that happening?
I mean, that can happen anywhere, right? As these brands start buying each other up, because that's what they do at this point. There's so many D2C brands that can be bought up by larger brands. Now just white label that. And then, if Dawson likes something that's like outdoorsy, it'll package that product, with an outdoorsy feel. And if Martha likes it more fashion, then same product, different packaging. They don't care. From the AI perspective, it doesn't care, as long as it's delivering something to that persona that's appropriate for them. So yeah, I think that's something that's definitely realistic. If we connect all these different areas of like print on demand, resizing pack for, that's available on demand as well. Like there's so many different things that can happen if you just have to connect all these different pieces to make this a reality, which is crazy. Because then we would really be out of work.
So true.
It almost makes you think that even a product can be on demand, not just the skin of it, right? Like let's say the energy drink, whatever it is, if you like certain flavors and have certain dietary needs, does it come custom to you the same way? So no two products are, you know what I mean? It's that much on demand.
Yeah. No, I remember about
that. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I remember about 8 years ago, the team over at Elmwood Design, they were talking about they were working on a 3D printer, a protein 3D printer. And this was 8 years ago. And they're like, basically you can, you tap into the app, I want roast beef and blah, blah, blah. And you punch it in the morning. And when you get home, you have like a fully cooked roast beef. Right. And I'm like, I don't believe it. And they showed like some crappy video of it and looked disgusting, but they're like, this is what one of the teams we're working on is doing. So again, it's like, we're thinking the way that the world is today, where I go to the store, I pick based on what's attractive to me. If I'm going down the ice cream aisle, what looks the freshest, what looks the least full of chemicals, and what looks most delicious, right? And it's going to be, is it like the Tillamook blue strip, or is it the the blue bunny, little blue, like all these little details matter to me as a consumer. I'm like, oh, that's attracting me to this. AI doesn't give a shit. AI knows it's all crap. It just wants to know what's in it, and if what's in it is what I want. And that's what's nuts. And then it'll be, which of those brands is designing it for the algorithm better, who's providing the information, easier to collect from whatever AI is collecting it, whether it's something I'm using online or something that the stores are using in-house. Yeah, no, it's insane.
Wow. All right,
But
questions.
I would say
Oh,
go check out skybox.blockadelabs.com. That's a new one that I just started with, where you can like sketch out just some random things. There's examples on that website, but it'll actually create a full 3D immersive world that you can move around. And if you're a game designer, that can be the world that you actually build your game in.
Wow.
It is nuts. I don't have any use for it from a packaging perspective, but I think
But you got to admire it, and right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 100%.
Every door's open, man. That's how I'm seeing it. Yeah. All right. Any questions from the students? Anybody got one? Go ahead.
Okay, hi, good morning.
Hi.
First of all, thank you for being here. I guess you answered this in some way, but I still want to ask if it's okay for students like us that are just starting to show off our skills or work to incorporate content AI generated to our designs. In your professional opinion, do you think in some way that affects the credibility over knowledge and capacity?
That's a great question. Does using AI affect credibility? Only if you're trying to pass off that design as your own work, right? If you're creating something with AI and then saying, look at what I did, I think it does. But if you're creating work with AI, combining it with your own work, and then having a reasonable conversation around it, saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've done, this is what I see as a student, even asking the question, does using AI affect my credibility as a designer? And again, I go back to LinkedIn. If you were to create something and post it on LinkedIn saying, as a young designer, I'm worried that AI is going to affect the credibility and how I'm looked at as a designer, and show the work and tag, you can tag the different agencies, you can tag the different brands, and 100% they will answer you. And if you do it in that way, where you're having a conversation, you'll start to see kind of where that conversation goes and what your next step should be. But don't be afraid to use it because you're afraid that people are going to say, oh, this person only knows how to use AI. At this point, nobody really cares. And I hate to say that about this, because this is the challenge with AI, is that it discounts experience. It doesn't care that I've been doing this for over 20 years. It could care less. Right? It doesn't care that Nick's been designing for the last 40 years because he's older than me. But yeah, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the agencies and the consumers just want good work. And if you can create good work because of your experience and how you're using AI, then more power to you. But being afraid to use it and share it is definitely not a way to get ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
I think they're all stunned.
Oh, we got
No, so Chris has a good question. How do we consider socioeconomics? So let's see, cutting edge tech will apply to those who can afford it, but that's not the bulk of global human population. Will basic packaging and design still be needed for those who can't afford high tech? Yeah, so there's a couple of questions in there. One, from a socioeconomic standpoint, there's definitely biases built into AI, 100%. And if we consider how can we use AI to make purchasing decisions for us, if we really open ourselves up completely to AI, which I think we will, because we're completely open to Facebook, we don't care. I think privacy doesn't exist anymore. If AI as a consumer gatekeeper knows my medical history, knows my financial data, knows whether I'm Black or white or Latino or Asian, or doesn't matter, it'll make 100%. It'll make decisions based on that. Right? I'm Latino. I'm an immigrant. Is my grocery list going to be rice and beans on a discount because it assumes that because I was an immigrant and I I had a green card that I can't afford XYZ, even if it sees my bank account. Is it going to make decisions based on, well, you don't have enough money to purchase these things, so I'm going to buy you the discount products. Is it going to push those things? Is it going to push somebody that is white and comes from a different family, a different background, better products? Because it's looking at it as a, you're going to worry about organic and healthy, and this person's going to worry about cost savings and doesn't care so much about the quality of the nutrition. It opens up a huge amount of issues, right? But these are things that are happening whether or not they're there. This is going to move forward. So it's like, how do we ride that wave? In terms of, will basic packaging and design still be a needed for those who can't afford? All of this stuff is pretty much free at this point, so it's accessible to anybody. I know for a while there, brands didn't want to have QR codes on their packaging. They weren't allowed to have QR codes on their packaging for recycling information or nutritional information, because the argument was that not everybody can afford a cell phone. Well, that's not true, right? Most people will do without food for a cell phone, which is insane, but it's kind of the reality of today, is that is information is accessible to everyone.
Wow. Rudy had a great question. Rudy, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. So how would you suggest someone prepare a case study for AI in their portfolio?
Yeah, I would, because of how quick things move in AI, I would create targeted case studies for whoever it is that you're applying to. So if you're applying to a design agency, pick one of the products that they have, repurpose it. So one of the things that I did not, this is one thing I can talk about, is there's an agency called Butterfly Cannon. They brought me in to talk to their entire team about using AI. And what I asked for is, like, give me a brief of something that you've already created. Let me get started with that, and I'll share the results with you. When we have this meeting, they sent me a brief of like a project that was a few years old, and I took the brief apart. I ran it through ChatGPT. I had it build prompts for me. I ran those prompts through Midjourney. I then shared those with them. And the mind-blowing thing was that the images that were generated of these concepts for this spirits brand were on par with their first round versions of what they built in-house, what they designed in-house, right? So that if you're doing that for an agency, if you're targeting an agency or a brand that you want to get into, find a product, find something that they've created. You can now take that image, run it through ChatGPT, for example, have it export a brief based on that image, take that as the brief, run and create new images with Midjourney of how else you could have done that. Go in, fine tune it yourself from a design standpoint, change color, texture, whatever it is that you want to do. And then that's something that you can share, right? Like, you can go in and say, I'm a huge fan of the brand. I love this product. I wanted to use AI and see how we can, make it better, change it, how to improve the workflow, move it a little bit faster. Here's the brief that I got from this image. Here's how I built it, and tell that whole story. Because again, the people that you're talking to, the people that you're sitting across the desk from, are not using AI in this way. Most agencies are not doing this. They're trying to figure it out, but they have no clue how to even get started. So if you can show them an actual example of application, you're going to be head and shoulders above anybody else that's applying for that.
Well, you just gave me project 3 for my class. So everybody, it's happening. That's such a great idea, to the reverse engineering of it. And again, to show to the question, how do a young designer show it in their portfolio, even to just test the waters in it and see what a future employer or in an interview might appreciate. What a great way to do it. Because it's all bottom line. It's all bottom line.
Yeah, no, that's it. They don't care, right? They don't care if you're using AI or not. They just want to know how they can get more work out of someone faster that is quality, right? And if you're able to add a new perspective to the conversation, 100%.
Perfect. Neil, do you want to ask your question real quick?
Yeah, no, amazing. Thank you, Emilio. This has been an incredible presentation. Really fantastic answers. And I was just thinking,
of the thing that we're tackling on a daily basis in the professional landscape is when you're at a design agency, you're working with other clients that have highly protected IP. And that's where, the guidance, the legal guidance comes in. We can't put that up on Midjourney as a prompt. We can't be, quoting these things. We can't put this in ChatGPT. And I think, we have our solution of localized solutions that we're working on, but wanted to kind of get your take on how you're tackling it in the design space, where you might be working with a product that's not released yet and, still needs ideation, and you want it to be crafted and curated and targeted, but, maybe there's protection that you want to be cognizant of.
Yeah. So what most people are doing is they're building their own versions in-house that lives on a local server. That's really what everybody's doing, and whether or not it is, some top secret project that they're working on, there's some level of AI, right? Because I just spoke to a brand. I just spoke to probably one of the biggest brands on the planet, from content, movies, product, theme parks, that does not allow any level of AI in their company for this reason. That means all their versions of Adobe, they're not allowed to use any of the generative. They're not allowed to, they have their own version of Adobe products now that do not have any of the generative AI built into that, which is crazy, because like this is one of the most cutting edge companies out there, but they're not allowing any of it into their business because of that. There's fear of sharing things that shouldn't be out there. But the question is, are they hamstringing themselves in developing new ideas because they're not embracing AI? And it's not that the designers don't want it. It's that just from a corporate level that they don't want it. So there's the option of building something in-house, or just saying completely, no to it and losing that opportunity to somebody that is embracing it.
Awesome. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right. Avilio, thank you so much, dude.
Yeah, of course, guys. And I threw in the chat there. You can, if you've got ChatGPT, you can click on that link. You can throw an image in there, and it'll spit out a brief for you, including demographics, psychographics, like crazy.
Wow.
So we'll take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. Guys, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then we'll do our panel discussion. But again, thank Terry and Avilio again. So thoughtful looking, man. You promised our minds would be blown, and I think it happened.
Yeah, it did. It sure did.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. So for Terry and I, do you want us back in 5 minutes?
Oh no, you guys are good.
We're
Yeah,
good.
that's good. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you guys
Thanks
so
again,
much,
bud.
man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
All right. We'll take a 5-minute break or so.
Yeah.
Dave needs a cigarette. All right, we'll be right back.
Let's hello.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. How's it going, David?
Justin
Good.
said that his title in ChatGPT are pretty cool.
Oh, no. All right. We'll give everybody about a minute or two to get back from our little break, and then we'll get started on our panel discussion here.
There's so many possibilities.
I know. It's changing everything.
I'd love to get Terry in here to have a workshop. Let's talk about that.
All right. Seriously.
This is why UCLA and USC Josh are contacting you, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe others.
What'd you guys think so far? Like pretty thought-provoking between the two presentations, huh? Really interesting. Well, I know in a good way. I think, and it's a wake-up call in a lot of ways. And it's still up in the air. It's still no one's 100% right or wrong, yes or no. You know, it's really cool. All right. If everybody is close by and can hear, come on back in. We'll start in about a minute here, okay? We have Terry's, we recorded the whole thing. Yeah. So for sure, we'll share that once this is all posted. Because again, very, very opposite kind of reactions I think we're all having from Terry's to Avelio's, which is great. It was kind of neat to see such a contrast in one topic, you know. All right. Looks like we got everybody back. Let's see.
To get that recording on the YouTube. Most of it's on. It's only good.
Joe did the recording, correct?
Yep. I'm doing it right now.
Oh, you are. Okay, good. All right, cool. Excellent. All right, guys. We are going to get started on our panel here. So moving into part 2 here of our Saturday. We have a great group here to kind of join and talk a little bit about the issues at hand. Not only do we hope to kind of cover AI, but also the current state of the industry, different things like that, because we're finding it each year. It is a totally different kind of situation as you graduate and get out into the real world, and bringing in the professionals in to really help guide you guys in the right things and show different perspectives. There's no two things alike here, right? Everybody's going into a different thing. And so our idea is to kind of have a great conversation with these panelists. We have Neil Carr, David James, and Justin Wu. Give them a round of applause for joining, guys. I'm going to ask you guys real quick if you could do like a brief kind of intro on yourselves, and then we'll get right into the questions. Neil, say hello.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Really happy to be here and good to see all the seasoned students. Dave, I'm a creative director at Petrol Advertising. We work as a 360 agency, primarily in video games. I've been there about 9 years. I was a video game developer before that, shipped about 4 Call of Duty games. So about 18 years in the industry, and been following AI since 2017, since they first kind of announced the whole generative adversarial networks situation. And what a fascinating world this is. So looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And thanks for being such a good friend to the school here as well, joining in on all these. All right. Awesome. All right. David James, introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is David James. I joke I'm a recovering production designer. I worked at DreamWorks for 20 years, Did a bunch of titles there: Monsters vs. Aliens, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, Boss Baby, Road to El Dorado, Over the Hedge, Flushed Away, Megamind. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but there was a ton of stuff. I started as a Viz Dev artist, and that was before Cintiqs. We did drawings in graphite and paper and gouache, back in the day, and weathered a few major technological upheavals in the industry. This feels similar, which is perhaps why I'm not too freaked out, but we'll talk about that more. And currently, for my sins, I've been at Warner Brothers for the last 7 years, with the title of creative director in animation, which is mostly I'm just there to try to not repeat the 20 years of mistakes that I've already made and to make some new ones.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, David. Justin Wu, tell us a little bit about you, man. Oh, you're muted. There's always a first.
Technology, right?
Exactly.
I'm the founder and former creative director of Apollo Interactive, CSUN friend, and hirer of CSUN and Intersect students. So I primarily worked in advertising. I retired about what was it, about 12 or 13 years ago, but I still am active doing my startups and other exciting stuff in Las Vegas.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here, guys. So we're going to get right into it. This first question is a little bit about AI in the industry, but mostly important is the students' perspective and how they can, just like we almost ended with the last question there, is like, how do we keep this human side and individual side as an artist, because the world's still, hiring us as that. The question is this, in this industry rapidly integrating into AI and automation, what are the unexpected little opportunities or unexplored creative avenues that you foresee for these emerging designers and these students? How can they harness something that's a technologically incredible shift like we're seeing with AI while preserving their unique creative voices? Does anybody want to kind of tackle this idea of how they stay themselves and embrace what we're seeing right now?
I think from an advertising perspective, the ability for these to use the AI as a tool to mock up ideas quickly is absolutely amazing. We used to have to pay storyboard artists thousands and thousands of dollars to come up with something that you can literally type into and get a comp of in minutes.
I agree. David, you look like you got something. Go for it.
Sure. Well, to me, I've got a quick anecdote. My dad is many things, but one of the things, he's a jazz musician, and he auditioned to take trumpet lessons with a very famous trumpet teacher. And particular guy, Dad went to interview with him, and promised this is going somewhere quick. He played for him, and the guy stopped him, and he told him the following quick story. He goes, "I grew up in Harlem, and I grew up down the street from this weird little Swedish enclave where there was a barbershop and everybody in there spoke Swedish. And I would go in there and I would listen to them talk. And I would go home, and because I had a great ear, I would talk Swedish to my parents, who thought I learned Swedish just by listening. Because I was just making Swedish noises. I wasn't saying anything." And he said to my dad, he's like, "You're making jazz noises, but you're not playing music yet." And so I liken the use of AI to a little bit like Swedish noises. Like it's an interesting first step, but it's not real expression. And so when it comes to a certain tier of things, I think it's right. I think it's a great generative tool to throw ideas around really, really early on, but it's just a stepping stone, because where design happens is intentionality. And the feature animation that in that world, like the only mandate really is excellence in everything. And if you can get there faster with a tool, I think that there are some profound ethical questions notwithstanding. But I, for instance, have tried to use Mid-Journey or anything like that to get what's in my head out on the paper or onto my tablet. I just end up painting it. It's faster. So on the other hand, it's great for generating elements that we used to use for photo bashing and applying filters and stuff like that. You can get elements very quickly, but I've never nor would I ever represent AI as my work. It's a fascinating tool. Many people in my industry are very terrified, very angry, and very concerned that it's taking their jobs, like storyboard artists. That said, storytelling is not necessarily the purview of AI. It is more setup. It is more a structural tool, in my opinion.
Got it. Neil, what do you think?
Awesome. No, I mean, great answer, David. And I'm going to piggyback off that. I think the intentionality is the key that's going to make us unique individuals as we move forward, because we're going to have this pastiche of AI solutions that you're going to cobble together. But the way you cobble it together, I think that's what's going to make you a Renaissance person. And I think that's my positive outlook looking forward, because, I'm kind of in that intersection of the cognitive dissonance. I used to be a computer scientist, in college, and then I, had artistic inclination, kind of found a merger of both worlds, and, get to do cool stuff every day. But I feel like we got to leverage ourselves as a human element to really drive this process. Otherwise, we lose ourselves to the process, and the process drives us. And I think that's what makes the entertainment business so compelling, because we go to watch a movie, we don't go to watch something that will feel like dribble. And we feel the pain when you watch dribble, right? And so the sequel, hey, this is the 9th sequel of this movie, and you just come out and be like, I've seen the 9th version of the same thing. So yeah, I 100% agree. I think the way I would take 2 steps back on that question, I think, it talks about emerging designers. And I think want to see if there's a way to change our mentality from being the replacement of skill sets to the invention of skill sets. And I think that's where I feel like it's the most exciting part of AI, is the compression of human skill. Like, not only can we be designers, but now we can be a writer, director, producer, designer all together. And something we call a turnkey solution in our profession, right? Like, oh, I got to go and use a animation studio because they're a turnkey solution. Now an individual has the possibility of becoming a turnkey solution. And I think that is the place where young minds, the upcoming generation, if they gear their minds towards it, I feel they're going to get the most mileage. And that's it's a very positive outlook, putting all the negativity to inform ourselves of what we should be cautious about. I think that's where we should go.
I agree. And if this thing is got to be the human plus AI, right? And you guys have been doing you've been in your careers, and you're seeing this new shift coming into our industry. What personal stamp would you try individually to keep on the work you're doing with the addition of AI? So, like, what's your signature? What is your secret sauce? And that, I think it would be great for the students to hear as they're developing and trying to understand what human side they're going to keep when they haven't even been out of school yet.
So for social media, I've used a lot of it for generating, captions and things. I have to have AI generate quite a few things to actually get to the real kind of meat and something that's good. I think it's a great tool. As a student, I think if you're a curator of information and you can kind of pick good things, it's like being a creative director. You look at a lot of stuff and then you pick the good things, and that's the one that you take to the client. The same way, you can use the tool to generate a lot of ideas, more than you probably could with human manpower, and then be able to curate and pick the ones that are the best ones, and those are the ones that will, you can hone into something that is really a gem.
David, what do you think?
Somebody put taste in the chat. It's a nebulous term, but I would offer that beyond taste, it's that curated, directed intention. You're never going to get an AI to generate a personal story like I don't know if you guys have watched that show, The Bear. It's fundamentally human, and that's
good example.
Yeah, that's fundamental to lived experience, and its authenticity is sort of unrepeatable. Whatever tool you use is sort of ancillary to the person behind that. An example, I teach at Art Center. For a long time, cars just looked like melting bars of soap because of the introduction of CAD. and people stepped away from the traditional clay model of a car or making things out of wood and actually using their hands. And I would offer that I think car design suffered because it was limited by the tool. I'm sure we'll go through a similar period now, but what came out the other side, we're going to get a lot of stuff that looks the same because it's all based on people using the same, source material. It is only when we start to leverage, our intention and bring whatever tools to bear on the problem that we'll see us move beyond the what is a limiting technology. There's going to be a lot of Swedish noises, is what I'm saying, until somebody learns to speak the language.
Great analogy with the car design. I couldn't agree with you more. And you're seeing you're seeing uniqueness, you're seeing 180 designs now, which is because it's back to creativity, it's back to originality, right?
Yeah.
Neil, what do you think?
Yeah, I think taste is a great place to start. I think, that's what we all strive for, right? As designers and creators. I'm going to add two more: taste, discipline, and control. I think those are the three ingredients that are going to make us successful as creators. I think taste is important, but I think taste doesn't just come automatically. It comes through discipline, right? It comes through an informed perspective of who you are as a creator and why you are creating, right? In my case, I've always felt like I've had the skill to create something when I was a kid. I was just the world telling me like, no, you can only do this or this or this. But now the cool thing about it is like I can feel a little bit more energized and open about all the things we can create. But I did learn discipline. I learned discipline of trying to do things the old school way. And that is still valid because the failure points, the pain points of how you try to do something and you don't get it. And once you know that information, that is hard-earned knowledge, that will inform your taste. And that will inform ways you want to control the process. And I think that was very important about the Avilio conversation, is because there's Midjourney, there's ChatGPT. Those are easy ways to go into the world and get solutions back, but it can create complacency. And that's what we need to fight against. Every person, whether you're a student, a teacher, a professional, we have to fight complacency. I think, just find ways to control. And if you can't go a little deeper, find ways to do things locally. Go even further down the rabbit hole. Find, the stable diffusion route instead of the Midjourney route. It's going to be more painful, but it's going to create discipline. And I think that is going to be the important way that we can force ourselves on the tech instead of the other way around.
To respond to that too, there's a thing that happens when students first, or anybody, myself, encountered 3D modeling and the lens packages in like Maya and stuff like that. Everyone's like, "Oh, cool! I don't have to know perspective drawing anymore. All that math I don't have to do by hand." And what you end up with is people who really don't understand the language of camera. People who don't understand the language of scale. And without those fundamentals, you're never going to see what you can't see, but that everyone else is kind of absorbing either consciously or unconsciously. A movie that came out for the first time that used real lenses, Wall-E, had Roger Deakins, and Pixar built an entire lens distortion package to add a cinematic quality that had, prior to that movie, been really absent in a lot of digital animated filmmaking. And it took an eye like Roger's to make the tool do what other tools and other people had been doing, with cameras and lenses since the dawn of film. So there's always something to learn, and there's always something to learn by looking backwards. And how can you bring the excellence and craft of those things? And again, once again, not let the tool tell you what works or what doesn't. My dad's also a photographer, and I would be told constantly by digital camera operators, "Oh, that's a 35mm lens." I'm like, "No, it isn't." The number might say that, but it doesn't look anything like that. It's rectilinearly distorting and not doing curving nicely at the edges the way an audience kind of knows subconsciously. So I don't want to ramble on too much about that, but all's to say, the tool is just one aspect of a huge skill set that needs to be brought to bear to create top tier entertainment.
I think the Wall-E example is perfect, where they got so crazy on the computer generated stuff, and there was a way of bringing in something that our minds are familiar with, that it was happening naturally with the camera lens, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I when you were saying that, I was imagining some of those scenes where it did give you that emotion that maybe another animated film didn't have, right? So it's like that's the stamp that still feels that a human did, where AI could never capture that or even instigate it in any way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. On this AI topic, we've got all of our students here either ready to graduate or, months away or half a year away. And if you were in their shoes with this AI kind of thing on the horizon, and with your perspective of where you're seeing it right now, what would you be doing? What advice can you give to them? Or is there a way to incorporate it into the portfolio and the resume that the industry out there will accept? I know that wasn't on the pre-questions, but I just thought of it.
I can jump in. I think kind of a few steps that come to mind. First of all is aggressive experimentation. Just don't hold back. Learn everything you can that is an entry point for you to understanding different tech, right? And don't just limit yourself to just one thing, because things can get very one-dimensional. If you're just looking at Midjourney and DALL-E, things are going to be really one-dimensional. You're just typing in prompts, you're getting images back. That's okay, right? So open up that whole palette of AI solutions. If you go to a site like futuretools.io, there is, I'm not kidding, there's like 3,000 things on there. Like that's kind of jarring, right? It's incredible that so much has been created in such a short amount of time. So I think that is the first place to start. And the second is transparency. We covered this topic before. You are a creator, you're a designer. You should always disclose that you're using AI, you're co-creating, and always try to do more than just AI, right? Bring your own voice to it, take it into Photoshop, paint on top of it. Don't just go for a vanilla solution. And the last one, and I think this is very key to a professional entry pathway, is what we were just talking about. I think Evelio was talking about working with a big brand where you can't use any of the solutions because they don't want anything to be ingested into the cloud. What do you do in that case, right? How do you safeguard yourself from experimenting, but also not being completely hampered by a professional situation? So keep that in mind. I think, catering your mindset towards the professional side of things, where how am I going to use AI in a professional environment in an ethical, responsible way, is also a pretty important step.
Wonderful. Justin or David, what do you got? David.
Well, I'll let Justin go.
Go ahead.
I think just from a standpoint of like having people that are not the best writers in the world have ChatGPT help write your resume. Honestly, nobody really cares that the stuff that's on there. They're looking at your portfolio a lot of the time. Some of the longer form descriptions of what you did there. A lot of the time the graphic designer is not the best copywriter in the world, so use it as a tool to help you out.
Yeah, and even to summarize or reword it in a more professional manner. I've been doing that as well, where like you could take your bio and say like, give me a very upbeat and animated version of it, or a more serious corporate version of it, and it's helping you out. You're right. I think that's a tool we can all have as creators. David.
Yeah, the Supreme Court several decades ago was dealing with anti-pornography legislation, and it was having a really hard time coming up with a definition. And they ended up with the definition, you know it when you see it. Like, it's not just nudity, it's not just like, but it's a thing where you're like, oh, that's pornography. And this most metaphors don't bear close examination, but you also know good work and original work when you see it, and it's nebulous, and how you got there is really ancillary. But you also, by transitive property, know mediocre work or generative work that has not been guided by a consistent vision or hand. It just becomes, to those of us who look at this stuff all the time, it's just like, I know what they used, and I don't. It's just it's a hat on a hat or a copy of a copy, and it doesn't show that spark of creative intent that is really the thing that when you see.
Yeah, I think it was a great example of Terry, who spoke first today, was showing some of the stuff he was doing and then explained that layer he put over it of personalization or extra texture or whatever it might have been. to prevent from having that AI look that we can see immediately. So I think you're right. It's like, you know it when you see it. And I think that's a great
AI
thing.
still can't draw hands. Learn to draw hands.
True. Very good point. Very good point. We're going to move on to the second question, and it's really about kind of perseverance and things like that. Is there ever a pivotal moment in your career where you faced adversity or setback, and how did you navigate through that challenging period? And were there strategies or mindsets that helped you in that time to create something new or refreshing out of some uncertainty?
I'll chime in. I guess in my thing from like a business standpoint, you often deal with a lot of difficult people. And I think that my philosophy, and something that's probably gave me a longer life than I might have had otherwise, is, you know, don't take a lot of this stuff personally, and like the stress and stuff. You really need to learn the dynamics of the people that you work with. And then sometimes just kind of give in or do things that you know, is for the betterment of the organization or whatever, without always trying to get your way and fighting. Pick the battles that you want to win would be the kind of analogy for that. It will help you in your career overall, instead of always trying to be really headstrong and trying to win every single case.
Cool.
Agreed. And I'd add to that, know who you serve or what you serve when you go in. I used to think I served my producer, or used to think I served my director. And sometimes you'll be spun down some very, very strange paths, and that will happen. What I realized, not too late, I hope, is that I serve neither of those. I don't even serve the studio. I serve the story. And if that's that we're telling, and if that's always front of mind, and you stay that course, you may get in some fights, you may get in some disagreements. That's part of the process. But if you are doing it not from an ego point, but a place where you are serving the collective endeavor, you will generally prevail more often than not. And that's the best you can hope for.
I love it. Yeah. Neil, what do you got?
I love that anecdote about serving the story. Kind of ties back to, I've heard this phrase about, you either have a job, a career, or a vocation. And you kind of want to be in that career and vocation side, of a nice little blend of it. And it's important because serving the story is your vocational calling, right? You feel like you're driven to it. It's not like you want to go wake up and get your paycheck, but rather you feel driven. I can't stop myself from designing. I can't stop myself from creating a character. And I think that is a great personal North Star for you to find your way in those moments of adversity. So I think my personal experience, I think, there's been many different ways of dealing with adversity, but also there's a way to view adversity as a positive rather than a negative, because adversity means that you want to conquer something, you have an objective, you want to go somewhere. And I realized that when I was working on Call of Duty, I had worked 9 years there. It was a very successful product. The studio was expanding. And, we had gone from a very successful 60-person studio to now like a 300-person studio. And what I realized adversity was that my career equity had topped out. I didn't know where to go from there. I didn't know how to grow as a person. I didn't know how to grow as a creative. It was not a successful product. It wasn't that I wasn't a successful creative within that product, but rather, how do I expand as a creative? And that's the adversity that I really loved. I had to take a huge risk. I left the company and I learned something completely different, made a lateral shift into advertising, where I was playing with GPU rendering, which is completely different from game, because I always felt hampered by the limitations of games. But doing something that was like, okay, this is a fresh slate. Let my brain learn how to absorb this new technology, and then reinvent it and represent it to a new CEO who then saw the vision and really accepted it. So I think I always look at that adversity that I encountered back in 2014 or so as a positive, and how it can be a teachable moment for us every single time you hit that situation.
Yeah, I've been in tears at my desk, in deep frustration. Like, I threw a pencil at a wall so hard once it stuck. That's how old I am.
That's how strong you are.
Yeah. Everyone in animation is really good at throwing pins, push pins into walls. It's a trick we all learned. But the thing that I'd offer this too, this is a weird thing, maybe when you encounter those sorts of frustrations, is embrace, and teachers block your ears, embrace procrastination in a very specific way. I mean that sometimes you cannot solve a problem without sitting with it for a long time. And we like to think we're all box checkers, right? We have a list, and once you've checked it off your box, like design character, check, then it's done and your brain no longer deals with it. But when you have a problem that's sticky and it's hard, I guarantee you two things. One, it contains the solution. And two, the more challenges or things in your world that you throw against that, your background processor is always synthesizing, analyzing, and generating abstractions against that problem. And that's some of us, I've had this happen a few times where you feel like a bolt of lightning hit you in the head going, I've got it. That doesn't happen right away. That happens from dealing with a problem for a long period of time. And sometimes procrastination, it enforces that intercomparison. So not to say don't make your deadlines, but sitting with a problem for a long time is its own form of discipline.
I love it. That's fantastic. We're making a lot of t-shirts out of these quotes.
Yeah.
Some really good ones. In this kind of same topic of your careers and moments of that time. And I think, Neil, you brought up kind of the what made me think of this. When and where did you take a huge risk, and how did you have the courage to do something that it did a positive or negative on your career, and showing that vulnerability? Was there ever a time that you guys took that risk, and how did you have that courage to do it?
I mean, I can go. I mean, I can just piggyback off that last story. I think that was the risk I took in 2014, which was massive. Just kind of cold turkey, leaving a company that had, been a huge formative part of my creative career for 9 years, and then just exploring something that was different, something that was lateral. What it did teach me was how to turn fear into courage. So I think the next phase is interesting because this is breaking news. This is happening right now, and I've been looking into AI for a while. I am taking a 3-month sabbatical starting December, and I'm taking it unpaid. So, I'm not a burden on my company, and hopefully, they want me back after I'm back. But it's primarily to re-educate myself in terms of how my brain should work in this new landscape of AI. And I've been doing it while I've been doing my full-time job, which turns my full-time job of 12 hours a day into 14, 16 hours a day, which is not healthy. And I think that's an upcoming topic. But this sabbatical is the next risk, which obviously I have some personal trepidation about. But I see the courage of where it's going to take me as a career and as an individual that is not only serving themselves right, but also can serve their company in a much better way.
That is such a brave thing. I know people that won't even take their week vacation because they're afraid. Yeah. How is the company going to do without me, right? Like, and they're checking their iPhone all vacation long. So to take that, and I know some companies that push that make sure their employees do that after certain years. That's fantastic, and what a great thing to kind of focus on while you're doing that. Which is great. How about you guys, Justin or James? Anything on that brave risk you took, and how?
I think at some point you have to ask yourself, do you want to work for somebody else for the rest of your life, or do you want to be an entrepreneur? And there's really not one answer that's right or wrong. It's perfectly okay. A lot of people want to be in the Army and they need somebody to tell them to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and tell them what their schedule is going to be. And then there's another group of people, and it's a smaller group, that is willing to take that risk to be an entrepreneur. And I think in your career, you should really look at, when is the right time? Do I have enough savings? Am I willing to go through the things and the hardships that it takes to be an entrepreneur and do something for myself? Because a lot of the thing is, if you have high aspirations of where you want to be in life, you're not going to do it being in the corporate world. You better, make a move at some point in time being an entrepreneur, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, the ones that are truly like superstars are people that almost stop doing what it is that they do and they love themselves and become like a leader of an organization of those type of people that are doing that. So whether you're in creative and eventually you become a creative director, or you break off and you start your own agency and you don't actually get to do the work anymore, you are just the leader of the people that are doing those same tasks that you did at one point in time. that's, something to think about in your, in your career and where you want to go in life.
Excellent. James. David, sorry.
Oh no, either way. I would say the reason I have the job that I have now is I went to interview at Warner Brothers with a friend and colleague of mine and his boss as a production designer, and like they had like 6 movies, and they're like, well, which one do you want? And I was like, halfway through the interview, I was like, I don't want to be a production designer, and you don't need me to be that. I couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth. I was like, there's no studio here. Like, you guys need to, we need to create something from whole cloth if Warner Brothers is going to have a serious presence in the animation world. And that's not me designing one movie, that's perhaps working with everyone. And they was sort of like, thank you, that's great, see you later. And then and then the phone call, my friend's boss left the next day to go run DreamWorks, hilariously. And then my friend called me back and he was like, I've been saying that for 2 years. And I don't know what that is, but you're right. And can you come and help out? We don't have a position and we don't have money for that position, but and I was like, well, I don't even know what that position is. Let's be brave and walk this path together. And if it works for everybody, then we can codify it in some kind of official way. It is sitting with that uncertainty. I know all you guys in this Zoom room are all terrified that A, you're never going to have jobs, and B, once you get a job, you're never going to get another job. We're all slightly imposter syndromes. I'm here to tell you that is 100% not true, and I'm sure that Neil and Justin will agree. It's going to be okay, and if you can really internalize that and know that you guys are the actual value in the world, and not the companies that offer that. If you can sit with that, then you will be able to make decisions with clearer eyes and your own goals in mind.
If you don't mind, David, I'm going to use that video of you saying that at the beginning of every new semester. Because that is truly,
exactly.
Thank you for saying that, because I think it's, again, that imposter syndrome that we all have. It never ends, right? But like giving them that courage and that kind of commitment that we're always going to be needed in some way, shape, or form, and us adapting to it is exactly why we're here.
Yeah. And if you're not scared, you're not doing it right.
Totally. That's exactly it.
Hey, Nick, can I just chime in there? Because I think that's such a great point for young folks in here. I've been teaching for 30 some years, and one of the very first things that I say to my students is this: look, you're going to be okay. All right, you whether you're going to be a designer, a great director, whatever that might be, you're going to be okay. How do I know this? Because I've been teaching for so long that I have a lot of former students that are doing okay. So you have to kind of figure out what your lane is, and that's just going to take a little time. Being a designer, an artist, and creator, it's really a messy process, but you're going to be okay. And I think that reassurance to telling the young people what you just said, David, thank you. I just think that is really a powerful, simple, but it's such a true message.
And also, just to add to that, you guys are here now. That's the hard part. Knowing your mission and your direction is a gigantic challenge for everybody in this world. But you guys have already found a path to walk. Some people will walk many, many different paths, but at least you're on one, and it will take you incredible places.
Perfect. I'm going to combine we had 2 questions that were similar in kind of nature, but we kind of are leading into this naturally, which is kind of the securing the job, keeping the job throughout all these kind of crazy times. And particularly now, it's this end of the year, whatever you might want to call it, with the economy, and we've been seeing even some of our alumni with some setbacks and some layoffs and things like that. So amongst this time and students entering the world, what unconventional approaches or strategies would you recommend a student to do to really stand out and make that impression in the crowded job market? And there are ways, we know that. How could they showcase this beyond just their traditional portfolio, resume, shaking hands, networking? What's that magic sauce that they could start thinking about to stand out?
I have 3.
Go.
Well, okay. First of all, don't be polite. Okay. Everyone thinks it's polite to go, well, I called them and they didn't call me back. Pester. Because pestering means passion. Okay. And more than anything, what I would encourage you guys to do is, if you can demonstrate genuine love and desire to do something or be somewhere, that's huge. That's even more important than your portfolio and your resume. The other thing is,
can you repeat that? That was so perfect. If you can, because that was it. That was it.
I think I could like just be persistent and don't worry about pissing recruiters off. Their job is to find people who want to work at the places that they're recruiting for. They're not gatekeepers. They're door people. They're there to open them, you know. And if you keep knocking on the door, eventually they're just, oh, fine, get in, you know. Like, more often than not, persistence is huge. I know so many people. It's just like when you're applying to schools, you're like, if that school is your first choice on the list and you apply for early decision, you immediately have a bump over everyone else applying, because it demonstrates beyond just skill. It demonstrates genuine passion and desire. If you don't fake it, but if that's your thing, just, again, don't worry, keep calling, and call. This is the last thing. Call on March 24th. I'll tell you why March 24th. March 24th for most companies is once the dust of the new year has settled and the Q1 budgets are in place and everyone is looking at the year ahead. It's around March 24th that people are like, shit, we need to hire a bunch more people. So if you're around the end of the summer, again, this is a totally general thing, but you do this enough, you see it's really cyclical. There's booms, there's busts. Someone is always ascending, someone is always plateauing, and someone's always crashing. There's an art to figuring out which ship to jump to at different times, but know that those wheels are always turning, and kind of assess where you are on the wheel once you get on one, and be aware of what's out there, and stay in touch with people. It's a community.
That's fantastic. I think what your golden nugget there was the idea of showing that you're passionate about working for them, or that you have that excitement of wanting to do work with them, for them, whatever it might be. And again, putting yourself in the shoes of the employer or the headhunter or the person at that gatekeeper. That's what they want. That's what they want. That's what they're looking for. So be that person. That's fantastic. Justin or Neil, what do you got?
I can go. I was going to add to that, David. Be decisive and be persistent is what popped up to my mind. And I think the decisive part is to really double down on your suite of skills. Like, know what you're really good at and just distill that every day in your mind. Like, don't be dishonest to yourself. Don't say that I can do this or this, where you can just kind of vaguely do it. Really double down on your super skills, and then find a way to get your foot in the door. Right. I think, that was a big part of me being in grad school and realizing, like, man, I'm going to apply to all these game companies. I'm going to apply to EA. I'm going to apply to Ubisoft, Activision, Pixar, any place that I can, which is good. You want that scattershot. But then I realized, like, I have a computer science background and I have artistic abilities. The best way for me to get into the industry was by not just doubling down on being an artist, but rather being a technical artist. Like, oh, you know what? I can use my technical skills. I can be an assistant to the art department. I can really help people. I can help departments. And maybe not necessarily my 10-year plan or my 5-year plan, but I think for a 1 or 2 years plan, getting into a place like Infinity Ward, which was making Call of Duty back then, was incredible. It changed my life. It changed my career. And I think that also taught me how I wanted to grow when I wanted to shift from game industry into game marketing, because I realized what I really want to do is find the places I want to work for. And I want to give them my own solution, right? Not just, like, hey, you guys have a process. I'm just going to come in and fit into your process. I'm going to go away and invent something. And that's what I was doing. I bought like an expensive computer with 2 GPUs back then in 2014, which was like unheard of. Like, what are you doing? Why are you stacking video cards in your computer? But I realized if I could render faster, I could bring ideas to the plate faster. And then I sent an email over LinkedIn to our CEO, Alan Hunter, and thankfully he responded, and he saw the vision. He saw what I was trying to do, which was turning 3D into paintings. And that's it. That's what persistence will give you. Persistence and decisiveness of understanding who you are as a person, what you can create as a creator. I think those were the the success factors for me, and I think that can be a success factor for everyone in this room.
And
Wonderful.
don't accept and don't accept. I bet Neil will has encountered this a bunch of times. When you see something that's dumb or inefficient or just the way things are, you don't have to accept those things. You can innovate. You can change the process, and you can go, wait a second. Like an example, we used to shoot our movies and then light them. That's ready, fire, aim. You tell that to someone outside of the industry, like that sounds insane. And that's why a lot of CG movies looked kind of flat for a long time, because camera existed independently or much in advance of lighting. And there's no photography without the physics of light. We were just shooting everything flat and poorly lit or flat lit. And that's a condition. It's just, we were beholden to the fact that we couldn't use the render farm. So we just started rendering on local boxes and brought actual cinematic composition into our camera process. And that was just by me just going, this is dumb. This is dumb. This is dumb. People finally, like if you see something that's dumb, don't accept it. Go fix it.
I've been that guy. I've rattled departments.
Yeah.
You might ruffle some feathers, but if it's a long-term benefit to the company, who's remembered? You are, Yeah. And that's a great point. Justin, what do you got?
So I think in, the upcoming thing, we're probably on the verge of having some kind of economic downturn at some point in time. I feel it. I hear that this thing is kind of coming, whether it does or doesn't. But the important part of that about being a designer is I think that if you have an ability to tie yourself to the dollar somewhat as a designer, you have a much better chance of weathering through that economy. And so if you're in, social media and you can show that you can help to sell things in social media, and you have experience of how, for certain companies that you made them this amount of money, in a tougher time, the companies are going to look for people like that have an effect on the dollar and the bottom line of the company more than somebody that's just really great at, designing something. I was in a board meeting recently and we were talking about social media people, and I've seen people that are hired out of college that could make $36,000 a year. Or there's somebody that's tied to the dollar that's making $250,000 a year because they're really good at tying their work to, revenue. And it's really not a matter of time that you had to do it for 10 years or whatever. It's just that you have that experience and you have that ability to, talk about case studies of like the work that you've done and how you've really brought revenue into a company. You can even get in these certain situations, stock options these days and all kinds of things that are tied to your ability to bring dollars into like a company that's looking to add EBITDA because they're going to, sell. So you got to kind of think about those things.
I'm glad you brought that up because we most of the times can forget the fact that we're commercial artists, and that idea of attaching ourselves to revenue, to pushing the needle, to adding some benefit to the company, that becomes the undeniable person in a field. When it's the time of a layoff, you want to be that person that's on one side of that column that's like, we can't do without. Like that person brings in something for us. And you're right, the other one might be doing better work, but is it truly making a difference for the company? And I know it's a hard one for a lot of the students to kind of understand that that's going to be part of your future. But the minute you experience that first even good win at a company or loss, you'll see the difference what money does to the corporate kind of culture at a place.
And diversify your skill set. Do not marry a tool. That is good love life advice as well as good technical advice. because tools are always evolving and getting more and more intuitive. And for years you needed to have a computer science degree to kind of even open Maya and navigate its bizarre UI. And now like anything you get off the shelf is so intuitive, you can start sculpting almost immediately or building almost immediately. And all the people who are like experts at navigating that cumbersome UI are all of a sudden going, well, wasn't developing my other design skill sets or my color sense or my, ability to compose and tell stories. So again, don't limit yourself by attaching yourself to one particular tool set. It's like saying I can only write novels on a Royal typewriter. It's just not true.
Excellent. All right, we've got 10 minutes, guys. I'm going to open it up to you guys. Who's got a question? Rhea, go.
So, with your experience with seeing junior designers or designers, have you seen like when you, especially like choose them, do you see them as like, okay, they have good work, but do you see them like, oh, they have good marketing skills, like they're good at communication and they're very extroverted? Do you find them to be like someone that you want to hire like at some point, like knowing that they're very passionate about? Because I've seen people like who talk about like how they're so passionate and they want to market about some things. So like, yeah.
Well, I've been interviewing actually CSUN students lately through Dave to hire some people. And I think that like one thing you guys need to think about is when you guys have your portfolios and you guys are doing a lot of like the comp work and stuff that you do, think about like the audience of who you're trying to sell it to. So for example, some of the things that I might have been looking for would be like somebody that does like web design or like logo design. Be sure that your portfolio really kind of showcases that type of like work. I think that that's like more important when you're working with people. You have to be able to communicate with them, but you want to see what kind of product that they do. And if I have to like visualize based on like sketches and things that you're doing, how you're going to be a web designer or a logo designer, it's a little bit of a disconnect, and you really kind of need to bridge the gap of that, even if you're doing comp work or free work, to illustrate how that is going to apply to me. You guys need to work on your portfolios that way.
Thank you.
I'd also offer that as I'm sure Neil and Justin have encountered, there's many different types of people. Not everyone is an extrovert. Very few people are actually. And being comfortable in your communication style is part of your authentic presentation of yourself. And if you're a quiet person, it's okay to be a quiet person, and let the work speak for you. There's no one type of person that always rises to the top or succeeds. It's mostly the people who are good at being themselves and not trying to wear somebody else's personality as a suit. And that's an important thing to know, how you like to work and engage. I think that more often than not, we celebrate the louder people in the world when it is in fact the quiet ones who are doing most of the work.
True.
Thank you.
So
Thank
true.
you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Just real quickly,
Go ahead.
I wanted to add 3 factors there. I think portfolio impression and intelligence really matter. Because when you're looking at things, those are the 3 things that come up to my mind immediately. But one thing that is my driving principle is potential. Because when I'm looking at candidates, I'm not looking at them like, oh, I'm going to work with them for 3 months, 6 months, a year. I'm always looking to build a foundation with everyone. I'm looking at the 5-year potential of someone who we can have a journey together and we can be mutually beneficial to each other. And how can you, learn our process, but you can also teach us your process, because I've learned that from, the hard experiences that David was just talking about, because I join a company and they're not open to any inventions of process. And then you just get ground into dust. That's not what we want to perpetuate. What we want to perpetuate is bring the next generation in and really find ways to grow with them. And I think potential is something that is always a driving light for me.
Is there one thing that a candidate can show that potential immediately to you?
I think big picture. I think, seeing a kind of a wide range of skills, not just being process driven or, a certain look driven, but seeing their ability to marry different skills and bring an idea to life. I think that's where I think the first impression also counts, right? You open someone's site, that's what happens in the first 2 minutes, right? That's like kind of a make it or break it type of situation, unfortunately, but we've all been through it. But yeah, I think the big picture ability really starts helping me understand if the candidate has potential, and I think the conversation then really helps me understand the potential of how they want to grow the company.
Love that. Big picture, guys. Remember that. Rudy. Go for it.
Something you had mentioned earlier was specifically relating to how we should approach ourselves after our university experience. I myself have ambitions of wanting to absolutely become a creative director at one point in my career, as well as go on to freelance. Now that I'm budding into my career, I would like to ask for any advice you might give for someone like myself.
I think that like if you really want to be a creative director, you have to showcase there's a lot of the side of a creative director that's a business side, being able to manage people and get the best out of people. And that's something that, I mean, as you move through your career and the different opportunities and working with people, you'll have to kind of showcase, I guess, more of the business side of that, is show that you're a great communicator with people that are in management, the ability to like work with people and like get the best out of them. I think, you know, build a team, doing things even from like hiring and stuff like that. It's not necessarily like a, you know, a creative art endeavor, but as you move into those leadership positions, you're getting more into like the business administration portion a lot of the time.
Yeah, have a head for money, like Justin said. It's important that you sit at the confluence as a creative director or production designer or any creative lead. You have two really big masters to serve. One is the budget, and the other is the creative appetite, and they are often misaligned. And your ability is to hold on to those two ropes that are trying to tear you apart and pull them together and tie a knot in the middle. And that means compromising. And it sometimes means not compromising. And learning that is a process that I still struggle with every day. You know, I used to say that my job was just deciding who I was going to piss off on any given day, because no one was going to be happy, and that's okay too. but don't rush into creative direction. Take a bunch of jobs, learn a bunch of ways that systems work, and pay attention mostly to the ones that don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Ooh, what a spin.
So true. So true. And I think a couple layers I'll add to that is, you know, communication and interpersonal skills. I think that will be the glue for you to have that long view, because yeah, absolutely you should aspire to be a creative director, but also understand how you're going to get there, right? How do you enter the industry? How do you grow within that industry? How do you make lateral shifts? How do you expand your knowledge? How do you expand your skills? How do you keep learning as a lifelong learner? Because all those things will make you a better creative director. I think, you know, like I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid, but then I also realized, like, if I didn't travel the world, if I didn't have all these other experiences, then I'm a limited writer. So build a pathway, a roadmap for yourself to be that creative director, and also find ways where you might hit a ceiling that you can go only so far. So for example, I'll give you a quick example. As a 3D artist who came up through the ranks, I just didn't see myself becoming a creative director through any type of angle. It's just people see me as a technical person. And then what I did was, like, I went to my CEO and like, I'm going to come back to the company and I want to be a weapon for your company, but I'll call myself a creative director. So have the courage to kind of find that moment when you feel confident that you have become a creative director, but take time. Don't rush into it, because if you rush into it, you're going to sell yourself short.
The other component to that is that most of the people that I know who are great leaders did not want to be leaders. They wanted to learn. They wanted to share. They are all of them teachers in their own right. You, as a leader, your job is not to get the glory. It is actually to take all the pain and give all the credit to the people upon whose shoulders you stand. And so I think a lot of people, especially in this culture and country, believe that goal is somehow the brass ring or some token that you get and then you hold aloft like a Frank Frazetta painting, you know, while people cling to your legs adoringly. It's quite the opposite.
My God, David, you got us some good stuff, man. We got one last question. Go for it.
Hi, sorry, I don't have my camera or headphones today, but my question was, so I am a generalist artist, and Professor Moon always tells us like sparkling portfolio, sparkling personality, and that's awesome, and I love that. But like, what would you give advice for someone who doesn't have a specific niche or sort of like specialty. Yeah, because I'm really down to do like motion graphics. I don't know it very well, but I've done one and it's really fun to do it. I've done like HTML and CSS, and that's hard, but it's fun too. So what sort of like portfolio advice would you give like generalist artists?
I was interviewing people and it was exactly that thing. As I see a lot of the generalism of what it is that you guys do, you're touching on all of these different aspects, but you have to remember when you go into a role and a position, someone's kind of looking for someone who's like a logo designer, a UI designer, a social media person. And if your portfolio is too broad and it shows too many things, I think it misses the message of what it is. So at some point in time, it's kind of like a doctor. You're going to have to pick a little bit of a lane, and you're going to have to specialize in one thing that you like, and then develop that one portion out to be able to be successful, because you can't be really a jack of all trades. I don't think that that's something that people generally want, because if you're a jack of all trade, you're a master at none of them, and you'd rather be a master at one specific category.
Yeah.
I'm going to add a slight bit of an opposing view, but I think a supporting view as well. It's interesting because my team, my immediate team, is built out of 3 generalists, and we have that title very specifically because we're a small company, and I can't afford to have a vast pipeline. Now, if I was a big AAA game company, I'd have departments. I'd have an art department, animation department, but that's not the situation. We have a department of 10. And our job needs change on a daily basis. So generalism is not a bad thing. I think that's the first mindset you should, adhere to. Like, I feel like there's a cloud on your head. You're thinking about, I'm a generalist, but what do I do now? Believe me, I've been there. As a computer scientist who was minoring in visual art, I'm like, I don't know what the heck am I going to do? Should I go and write software? Should I make sculptures? Should I learn Photoshop? Like, first of all, you're at such a formative stage of your career, and as a student, have fun. I think that's what he said. You were having fun doing this and this. Keep having fun. I don't know how close you're to graduating, because maybe there's a way to kind of dial in the fun too. So and be more tactical about it. But if you're having fun with something, it means you're heading in the right direction, and your fun is going to become passion. Your passion is going to become your career. I think that's the ideal roadmap, right? So be honest with yourself. I think this goes back to the distillation of your understanding of what you are as a creator and what you're going to be the most successful as you're getting closer to graduation. But take, I think, the generalism as a skill, right? Your understanding of multiple things can inform each other. And keep in mind, with AI and generalism, that's the future. I think there's going to be a lot of compression of skills that, maybe you're specializing in MoGraph, but you're using all these other solutions to really, really super propel your MoGraph skills. So I would just kind of add that as a positive outlook of being a generalist, because there are companies that look for generalists, but you have to be tactical about it. To find them, you have to seek them out.
And to Neil's point, like if I was working at DreamWorks and you came to me with a generalist portfolio, I'd be like, you need to tailor this because I've got to stick you in a department. But if I was working on a tiny project with 3 other people, and I was like, well, this is a moonshot, but if we get it, we're gonna win life. And we don't have any money, but we have a lot of passion and a really good idea. Those are great platforms for generalists to just go in and go, I don't know, let's figure it out. Like it's if you want to be in a big machine, you're going to have to be a cog. If you want to be in a little machine, you can be, well, I don't know if that metaphor is going to go anywhere, but you can be more than one.
It sounded good. We all were nodding before you finished. That was good.
As you move up the chain, like, when I got to the point where you're a creative director, it's great to be a generalist, or even in my life now as an entrepreneur, to know a little bit about everything, and you're dangerous enough to know and be able to direct people and say like, hey, when you're doing this, what if you did it this way? And you don't really know how to do it that way, but you know that way is possible. Then being a generalist is a really great thing, because you can talk to all the different points and you can lead the people in the thing, but you probably can't even do it yourself the whole, way. I'm an illustrator.
I do want to add one thing. Find successful generalists. That's one thing. If I could go back in time and tell myself, I would have told 16-year-old me that that's a good thing. There are role models for you. There's people like James Cameron. There's people like David Fincher, and they are successful because they know the entire pipeline. Now they're really good at directing, and they've come up through a certain track, but they can go to every single department and call like, hey, I think this is BS. I think you can do this way, and you're just not doing it because you're not thinking outside the box. That I think is an incredible superpower.
Yeah.
That you could find role models and see their life journey and how they've grown and really succeeded. I think that could be a really good roadmap for you.
Wonderful. Well, guys, I think we come to an end here. This was fantastic. Let's thank Neil and David and Justin.
Nick, before you go, can I say something really quick?
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I just want to make sure. When David, I just wanted to piggyback on what he was saying. When David James was saying pastor people, just to our students, he's Canadian. So he's not saying pastor people. So you need to do it in a nice way.
Always. He's like, no, I really meant that.
Persistent communication. Yeah, is cool. Good. But yeah, there's nice ways to do it. Just
That's cool.
Go to Vancouver for a bit. hold some doors for people that are too far away.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Again, guys, let's give it up for Neil.
Thank
David,
you,
and
guys.
Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. That was a
Happy
wealth of
Thanksgiving
knowledge.
to you all.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Thank you
guys.
again, right?
Good luck.
Good.
All right,
guys. Thank you, guys. All right, then we'll see everyone. We'll take a lunch break and I'll see you on campus. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. See you here.